wear a bathing suit because season 13 of the conversation is going tropical!
Oh, it's mischief. You know, never believe it's not. SOT stands for Sea of Thieves. Hello and welcome to the conversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
I'm Jeff Onan. Good bit. You nailed it.
Little pilot reference for you at the beginning of this episode, Jeff.
You know, I think that you bottle this up and wait for me to be on the show because you can't just drop like early 70s bands references on all your other co-hosts. Dustin doesn't understand. He's a sweet, innocent boy.
You know, this is going to be an early 90s reference, but, you know, Will Smith, Fresh Prince, and DJ Jazzy Jeff, they once said that parents don't understand, but often I find it's my younger co-hosts that don't understand. Dustin doesn't understand.
Yeah, and I'm the youngest co-host of all, having been born in 2007, but for some reason I understand. I'm out of time.
You are basically just floating in the ether of the time stream. You are past, you are present, and you are future, Jeff. And that's why I'm so glad to have you back for the Kongversation season 13.
I'm glad to be back. And just so you know, it's not too late to start over. This is this is the Kongversation podcast, and you are the host, Hyle Russell, and I am your ward. I am your I am the Bachman and Turner to your Burton Cummings. I don't know what this is. And what is this? What we're talking about? Sea of Thieves. Hyle, I'm so out of practice. It's been 5 months since I've been on an episode of the Kongversation. Did you know that?
Well, I like to put you on the shelf a little bit, Jeff.
It's your fault.
So you can ripen like a fine cheese.
Yeah, you don't want to eat a green banana. I get that. But this is season 13 of the Kongversation. Season 13. This is the first episode of season 13 of the Kongversation because the season doesn't come back until Jeff comes back. We all know that.
That's right.
But on season 13 of the Kongversation, today we're talking about season 14 of Sea of Thieves. Before we get into that, you have to tell us all the stuff. Hyle, tell us some more stuff.
I have to tell us all the stuff. So can I just say, we need to get through season 14 of Sea of Thieves. We are currently in season 15 of Sea of Thieves. And we'll discuss that later in season 13 of the Kongversation. But of course, we've got a lot of stuff on the immediate horizon. We've got the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct coming this Wednesday. And of course, there will be a live Kongversation after the fact. And the hours after that, I will be doing a live Kongversation at twitch.tv/DKVine. But many years ago, Cameron and I did a follow-up episode on the Nintendo Power Supplies catalog, where we delved into it and went further into the back pages of Nintendo Power's classic merchandise catalog to talk about some of our favorite novelty items in there, both DKU and some just DKU adjacents. But at the end of that episode, I was like, we have so much more to discuss with this, but unfortunately, we're out of time. I promise we will do another one. We will do a fourth part. And I just threw it out randomly. I said, season 13, episode 4 of the Kongversation. Well, it's time to pay the toll, Jeff, because that is the next full-length episode of the Kongversation. Unfortunately, at the time, I did not know it was going to coincide with the big rollout for the Switch 2. So, what is someone like me to do? Someone who always keeps to his word, who tries to never make a liar of himself. Well, I think the only fair thing to do is to split the difference, to make both sides happy, to reside in the mushy middle. So the next episode of the Kongversation will be our Switch 2 Direct discussion. However, There will be interludes throughout the episode where we discuss classic Nintendo Power Supplies catalog merchandise. I think that's the only fair thing to do, Jeff.
It's right, and it's true, and it's good, and I don't care about it. That's next episode, because we're still on this episode. And on this episode, I have to let the people know that you can follow DK Vine on Twitch, like Hyle already told you, and also on YouTube, where Hyle's making cool YouTube videos. But if you want to support us, we don't get a lot of we don't get much for ad revenue. So if you do want to support us, you should follow us on Patreon. Patreon.com/DKVine. Is that right? Or DKVine.com/Patreon. Both are both true?
Both true?
Wow.
Just like
yes.
It's true. Like, it's both true that the next episode of The Kongversation will be Nintendo Switch 2 direct discussion and Nintendo Power Supplies discussion.
Yes, it's like chocolate and peanut butter. Two good separate things. Follow us on Patreon, pay us money if you want, and you will get to listen to these episodes live right now. There's people doing it. If you're in the future, if you're some sort of chump who's not listening live, what are you doing? It's 11 a.m. on Saturday. You could be listening to this live, like March Rose 2011, like Porygon Q, like several hundred other people. I can't list them all. Only the first two, first come, first serve, get listed.
That's right. Yeah. Them's the rules.
Them's the rules. If that's not enough, though, you could also support us by going to TeePublic, right, Hyle? Yeah. How do they get there? Because you could buy really genuinely comfortable T-shirts, and then when you're supporting us, you're getting something out of it, namely a T-shirt. A
comfortable T-shirt, that's right. DKVine.com/merchandise takes you to our TeePublic shop. And, of course, right now, the big new item on there is the Kongversation Season 13 artwork by Dustin. Dustin, who does not understand a good pilot reference when he hears it, but he knows how to illustrate a damn fine Kongversation album artwork masterpiece. And we've got this shirt, right? We've got it on the shop right now as a t-shirt. You can get it with the Kongversation logo, but if that's too shameful for you, you can get it without the Kongversation logo, so people won't laugh at you.
That's right. Well, and may I just say, in our live stream chat from our live listeners on this live recording of the Kongversation, one of our listeners, March Rose 2011, says they're on a walk while listening to the live Kongversation. What's better? T-shirts, maybe.
T-shirts.
That's a quote. That's T-shirts may be better. I have a couple of them that I've been sent against my will, sort of as a form of cyberbullying, and they are comfortable T-shirts.
Yeah. It might start off as a joke, but it'll quickly become part of your wardrobe. Laundry day comes around sooner than you might think, and then what? Then you just go around topless? No, you're going to put on that shirt, and then you're going to succumb to its wily ways and say, well, I guess I could wear this, when I'm not going out. But then, you might have to run to the shop to get something. Maybe some milk, maybe some Tylenol. I don't know. So you have to go out to the shop, and you're going to grin and bear it. But you know what? You're going to be so comfy, you're not going to care that you got the DK Vine logo plastered over you.
Yeah, not me wearing my Grapes t-shirt out to the shop to buy milk or Tylenol.
That's right.
Yeah, catch me. I don't know. Anyway, is there anything else we have to plug? Blue Sky. DK Vine's on Blue Sky. We're not on the other bullshit. We're on Blue Sky.
That's right. We're on Blue Sky. That's where I do most of my social media postings. Although, you can also keep up with us on DKVine.com. I try to announce Kongversations on YouTube. And, of course, our patrons get a running feed of everything happening. So, lots of ways to stay plugged in. Now, we also, Jeff, much to your chagrin.
What?
I don't think you're grinning much. They should call it a chafrown, honestly.
What?
Much to your chafrown, we take calls for the Kongversation. And people can dial any time of day, whatever they feel like suits them best. They can roll out of bed. They can call us in bed. They can call us in the shower if they would like.
They could do that thing from the 70s where they call and they just breathe heavy and you're like, oh God, there's a creeper calling people out.
Gotten a few of those. I've gotten a few of those.
Oh God.
Fair play. They do turn me on. And I do take advantage of them, so thank you.
And we do play them on the podcast. So please call our hotline. How do they call, Hyle? What's the hotline?
Well, thank you. I was about to say before we started that creepy breathing bit. 1-202-630-VINE. It's 8463. Give us a call. Typically, we only play calls that are related to the topic when we announce it, but we do call sack episodes later on, So it's not like you call in and you just ramble and maybe I'll play it, maybe I won't. I might not play it because last time we got so many calls, I had to half them. I was like, I can't play all these calls. I'm sorry. But I try. I do my best. I just do my best, Jeff. I'm just one person.
You're doing a good job, Hyle. You are doing a good job. And I'm proud of you. And I hope that our listeners, try to do a good job when they call. Don't give us bad calls. You know when they're bad. Hang up.
And you can hang up and try again. So many people do that. They start and they're like, this is bad. Please don't play this. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to humiliate you. That's not my style.
No.
My style is celebrating the caller, even if they're breathing into the phone. Oh, trust me, I celebrated that call. But we got 2 calls for this episode, Jeff. This Sea of Thieves Season 14 discussion. So I thought since you don't like listening to phone calls, we would just get the bad bits for you out of the way first.
Since when?
Since every single time you're on and I say it's time to take calls and you go, ugh.
Well, you gotta have the meat before you have the pudding. I know. All right, let's eat this meat up.
All right, so let's go ahead and play the first call related to Sea of Thieves Season 14.
Of course, the first episode I get to listen to live after I get my Patreon membership back is another damn Sea of Thieves episode. Oh well.
Thank you for the call.
No, I'm not thinking that. Rude. That was rudeness.
Here's what's funny though, Jeff. Can I just say a little weird bit of DK Vine? I don't know, obscura. Like right now, like it's
your show. You could say it.
It's always been a struggle incorporating Sea of Thieves content. We'll call it content. I don't like that word, but sometimes I've got to use it because
content.
I realize Sea of Thieves does not necessarily strike everyone's fancy, especially if you are more on the Nintendo side of things, or if you haven't kept up with Rare post-buyout. Sea of Thieves seems so far astray from the subject matter that usually fuels the conversation at DK Vine. And so for the past 7 years, since Sea of Thieves has launched specifically, it has been a constant juggling act of keeping Sea of Thieves discussion interesting for our listeners, for our readers, for our viewers who don't normally go for it. And we've been well aware of it. We're very self-aware of it. Every Sea of Thieves episode, you make some little remark, Jeff, about, sorry everyone, it's a Sea of Thieves episode. But within the last half year or so, something's happened. Our Sea of Thieves streams on twitch.tv/DKVine, they've become our most popular streams.
Wow.
Between the Idaho crew, between DK Vine Dunslow, we've got the audience on Twitch, but the audience isn't there for the conversation on some platforms. Like the actual uploads to the podcast networks. Yeah, there's not much drop off for Sea of Thieves episodes. For YouTube, there is. So it's just weird how our audience, depending on the platform, either really loves our Sea of Thieves stuff or really can't tolerate it. I don't know what to do about that.
Well, you don't have to do anything, Hyle, because I don't care.
Oh, okay.
I just like hanging out with you. So it's fine. Yeah, if you're coming to us from YouTube and you don't like this episode, you already left because we're 20 minutes in. So that's fine. It's all fine. Thank you for the call. We love you.
We love
also,
you.
the call said that this is their first chance to listen as a Patreon, and they're fucking not here. They said, "Oh, I get to listen live." They're not here. Maybe it's because it was a Sea of Thieves episode, or maybe they got struck by lightning. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
That could happen too.
I hope they're okay. Lightning happens.
Yeah, they say it never strikes in the same place twice, but the problem is it'll strike you first. Like, you can't avoid that first strike. It'll get you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's no comfort. I'm not trying to not be struck twice. I'm trying to not be struck at all. So there's no comfort in that. Life is chaos. Nothing matters. Let's hit the next call. Do we have another call?
We have another call. So
we have another
call, I think, is directly related to the way I promoted this episode. So,
all right.
Yeah, that will be a good segue into the actual discussion of season 14 itself. Here we go.
Hello, Jeff and Hyle. I think it's both of you tonight. This is ye old Banjo-Kazooie 2000 member, inactive member of the DK Vine Forum. I have just witnessed the Facebook post with my eyes talking about season 14 of Sea of Thieves. I remember when Sea of Thieves was merely trailers and things in my mind thinking about the pirate game. I don't know why. Are we really not discussing? Sorry, I'm reading the post now. We are not actually discussing Sneak King. I was just going to ask in regards of Sneak King. Does anybody really know the truth of why the Burger King got his own video game? Like, he had his own mascot, series of mascot characters in the 80s and 90s, I thought. Like the Burger King kids or something like that. And then they just ceased to be. They are no more. Perhaps I've called the wrong hotline here, in my desperate need for questions. Perhaps there's a Burger King's anonymous line that I should be trying to call. Sea of Thieves is pretty good, though. I do enjoy the sneakery and the mischief and the pillage, plundering, rifling of loot. It's a good time. Yeah, that is all. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the call. So, Jeff, I caused some confusion. I made some mischief, you might even say.
You made mischief? What?
I announced this episode.
I hope you closed the door.
I announced this episode really leaning into a gimmick you employed during season 14 of Sea of Thieves. Season 14 of Sea of Thieves was really heavily promoted. It even had a subtitle, which I can't recall them doing this much in the past. Like sometimes when there was a big, like, tall tale rollout, like A Pirate's Life or, something, they might like really just not lean into the season number, but more the like branding of what it was. But they came up with a bespoke title for this season. It was called Making Mischief.
I think they all have these little like title code names that they kind of push. But yeah, this one really, they leaned into the branding of it, put it on t-shirts.
They had a logo.
Making mischief, la la la, Tim Burton, Christmas movie time. I don't know. Sorry, move on.
The logo had like peeping eyes, like hiding in the shadows, like probably calling the conversation and breathing quite heavily.
Yeah, like a phone pervert. Like a telephone pervert.
This might be a distinct bit of Americana, and our more international worldly audience wouldn't understand this reference. But in like American neighborhoods in the United States, maybe specifically, where there are like neighborhood watches, and they have these signs. So like this neighborhood is protected by a neighborhood watch, and they have like a pervert on the sign with like a no symbol around him. And
Shifty-eyed.
Some pervert in a trench coat, and you just see his eyes like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get off in this neighborhood. It's like, no, you're not. Because we see you. We see you in those bushes. So that's what this Making Mischief logo reminded me of, the neighborhood watch pervert.
You know, when we talked about the telephone pervert, which is a classic of American cinema, but the other pervert was the trench coat pervert. Remember every movie in the 80s had a guy in a trench coat that would like reveal himself?
Yeah, every movie in the 80s had this E.T.
Okay, not every, what? All right, you're going to call me out. It was a popular trope. It wasn't in every movie, I'll admit, but it was a popular trope. Guy in the trench coat revealed, and it was always treated as a gag, as if the rampant, bad behavior that was allowed at that time and still goes on today, as if it was just a bit of fun prankery. But what can we do? Actually, one of the gremlins in the movie Gremlins does the trench coat gag. I rest my case. That was 1984. And you know what? We're not even any better today. This fucking country. All right, I'll move on.
George Orwell was right.
We were Making Mischief, and Hyle, I think what you were getting around to was trying to explain, because if you just tuned into the call and you didn't see the post on Facebook or whatever,
and Blue Sky,
you might not know what this caller was talking about, which is Burger King fast food franchise.
So yeah, Burger King. So I think what the call actually was getting around to is Burger King's first mascots was, or at least the mascots from the early 90s to maybe the late 90s, were the Burger King Kids Club. And it was a group of diverse children who really loved eating at Burger King. And they had a pet dog as well. And they were the Burger King Kids Club. It was Burger King's answer to the McDonald Land gang, the Ronald McDonald, Grimace, Birdie, Hamburglers of the world.
McDonald's was sued by HR Puff and stuff. Was it? No, what was it? Was it? Am I right?
Yeah, the Sid and Marty Krofft.
Yeah. And they were successfully sued because they were a ripoff, and that's fine. But Burger King's wasn't a ripoff. Burger King was good.
Well,
just kidding. I'm not a Burger King fan. I'm just pretending.
Then at some point they decided that, McDonald's had the kiddie market cornered. What Burger King needs to be is the fast food joint for discerning adults. And so, possibly inspired by the neighborhood watch pervert, they decided what they needed was their own pervert in ads. And of course, Subway had Jared, which would later become like a real pervert, but nobody knew that at the time. So Burger King decided we're going to have the biggest pervert of all. So they thought. And then they introduced the Burger King, the actual Burger King. And it was a guy in a creepy Burger King mask, like this almost like plastic looking death mask of a Burger King.
Yeah, I remember. So what's this all about? What's the point? Get to it.
Oh, you want me to get to it? You want me to get to the point of the story? Okay.
Get to the point. All
right. So these ads became pretty popular. And even before, YouTube, before you could really make easily cropped GIFs online, these were still kind of memes, these creepy Burger King ads. And so people were like, have you seen that creepy Burger King ad? It's great. I love it. And Burger King rode this wave of early aughts marketing, and they really leaned into the Burger King. And it got to the point where in 2006, the Xbox 360 was new, and Microsoft decided we're going to have a tie-in promotion with Burger King for the Xbox 360. And what we're going to do is we're going to have exclusive Xbox games. I think they were dual Xbox 360 games. I'm not sure on that, but
oh, wow.
You could get these exclusive Xbox games at Burger King, and they would be unique, developed for Burger King. Couldn't get these anywhere else. You couldn't get these at GameStop. You couldn't get these at Target. You had to go to Burger King if you wanted a complete Xbox library. And I think the most widely remembered of these is Sneak King.
Sorry, I just choked on my spit.
Jeff is getting hungry at all this Burger King chat, and he's producing copious amounts of saliva. I'm sorry.
Well, because their fries are so, Anyway, there were 3 games. One of them was like a mini bike, motorbike game. I don't remember. I never had any of these because I didn't have an Xbox 360. I'm a grown man. But one of the games was called the Sneak King, and I guess it was sort of a stealth game where you tried to give people hamburgers without getting caught. I'm not really sure. But yeah, you played as the Burger King. And by the way, our caller said at one point, I don't know if this is the right hotline to call, Burger King Anonymous. And I just wanted to point out the pun was right there. You were supposed to be calling the Kongversation, all right? The Kongversation podcast, not the Kongversation. Anyway, I'll let it go. You're okay.
Right. We are not the Burger King experts, by the way, so I apologize if we got any of those facts wrong. Our area of expertise is the DKU, Rare, Platonic. We don't know the ins and outs of Burger King, and you will have to call
please,
it
please,
Kongversation podcast.
Call us and correct us. Let us know what we got wrong so that we can play your call on a future podcast. Because the idea of the Donkey Kong fan podcast having to talk about Burger King in more than one episode is very amusing to me. So please give us a call. Let us know what we got wrong. If your call doesn't have any facts to back it up, though, we will not play it. You need to bring the heat. But Hyle, why are we talking about Burger King? What's this have to do with the stuff?
So, Sea of Thieves Season 14, the tagline was Making Mischief. And
Making Mischief, la la la.
The idea, Tim Burton, is that we would be able to have all manner of stealth abilities, stealth movement, stealth disguises, a little bit of like Metal Gear Solid faffing about in the shadows, hiding as barrels or chest or some innocuous object within Sea of Thieves. So other rival players wouldn't necessarily know that you are on their ship. And sneaking is the apt word here. Sneaking around, making mischief. And Jeff, this triggered something in your brain, fired the synapses, and you remembered the 2006 classic for Xbox, part of the Xbox family, like Rare, like Sea of Thieves, Sneak King. You thought, wait, Rare's also added all of this kingly cosmetic wardrobe gear your pirate can wear within Sea of Thieves. At the same time, they are adding the concept of sneaking. This is my life for the next few months.
Yeah, I did do that. In summation of the last, I'm going to say 12 minutes, I thought it would be funny to dress as the Burger King.
Yeah.
We could have said it all about 10 seconds.
What?
I thought it would be funny if I dressed as the Burger King, and so I did, and I stayed as that for the whole season of Sea of Thieves, so I could sneak, like the guy.
Like the guy. Your pirate has always kind of resembled the Burger King, but it's amazing when you put the actual kingly accoutrements over your person.
He just needed a crown. What did you say at the start of the show? You said something about a frown. What was it? Oh my God, I'm sorry. What was it? Frown?
Chafrown rather than chagrin.
Chafrown. More like chacrown, because I just needed okay. I really went. This is a long walk to a bar that was closed. All right, listen.
Yeah.
I thought it would be funny to dress as the Burger King,
Right.
And I was right. I
You
have
were.
great instincts about what is funny. And I have great instincts, and I was right. It was funny. And so I did. And now we're getting calls because a bunch of people, not just the caller, but like a numerous of people, are responding to your Facebook post or your Blue Sky post, and they're saying, wait, the Donkey Kong podcast is talking about the Burger King video games? What? That's an impression, a really spot-on impression of our audience. We're not going to talk about the Burger King video games, other than the previous 12-ish minutes.
Other than everything up until this point.
Up to this point, we have been talking about the Burger King video games, but that's not the point of this episode. The point is Sea of Thieves. We're talking about Sea of Thieves. It's a current video game made by Rare, who made Donkey Kong games. That's why this is the Donkey Kong Fan Podcast. The Donkey Kong Fan Podcast doesn't make episodes about the Burger King video games from the Xbox 360 in 2006. We don't do that, but I like to think there's somebody in the middle of that Venn diagram that just really loves this episode. Like, they're calling in and breathing hard, if you know what I mean. They're like really, really enjoying this episode.
They've got like a Whopper value meal, like before them. They've got like a mouthful of hamburger and chicken nuggets and fries, and they're just like, oh yeah, oh.
You know, sometimes you get your, sometimes when you get your meal and you get your small fry, they give it to you and then you have it, and then you look into your fries and there's like one onion ring in your fries, and you're like, oh, don't mind if I do. That's what this episode is.
Yeah.
This is just the Burger King video game discussion is just one little onion ring on the total episode that we're going to present to you.
Here's a little Hyle trivia for you before we really talk about Sea of Thieves, Jeff. It's Hyle Burger King trivia. I think you'll like it.
Oh, please. I would love to hear this.
So, I've been a vegetarian for 24 years now. I've been a vegan for a couple years. But the very last actual meat hamburger I ever ate was a Burger King rodeo cheeseburger. The rodeo cheeseburger, I don't know if they still make them, but they were a tie-in for the movie Small Soldiers.
Oh my God, that's my favorite movie. Did you not know that's my favorite movie? Oh,
I know this about you, Jeff. I thought that's why I'm talking. That's why I'm bringing this up, because I was like, I feel like Jeff is starting to get a bit weary of the Burger King chat. How can I manage to bring him back around? I will bring up was it 98? The 98 movie Small Soldiers?
And they had they're not Happy Meal. They had like kids meal tie-ins with the toys. They had the toys. I collected them all.
The movie Small Soldiers kind of came and went, but the rodeo cheeseburger tie-in was so successful. People loved this thing. It was a cheeseburger with barbecue sauce and onion rings on the top. And they kept this around for several years after. And so it was 2001, the year 2001, 6 years before you were born. And I was already...
Space Odyssey, I know.
Yeah. I was leaning towards becoming a vegetarian, but I wasn't quite there yet. I hadn't committed because I love the rodeo cheeseburger so much. It was so good. So I remember it was probably May or June 2001. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to get a rodeo cheeseburger. This could be my last. This could be my last rodeo. And it turned out it was.
Oh my. Well, what a story. Can I just say, before we get into Sea of Thieves, that this past year at my current job, I am allowed to listen to whatever I want in my headphones while I'm working. And so for the first time in my life, I've actually started to listen to podcasts, which is embarrassing. I hate to be a podcast guy. I hate myself a little bit. But in the past, I've given you a hard time. I've really, took you to the tool shed and said, these episodes are too long. You're rambling. I don't like it. But now that I'm a listener, I've been listening to podcasts, and it turns out I like it. I like it when they ramble. I like a cozy 3-hour podcast to get me through the workday. Because before, if I wanted to listen to something, I wanted some information, and I wanted 55 minutes, and then I'm out of here. I have a busy schedule. But now that I have to kill 8 hours a day at work, I love a cozy little Ramblecast. And so this is great. We're finding out what was the last fast food burger that Hyle ate. I love that. It's great.
Yeah.
I'll say that. And
it's the difference, Jeff, between calling into a podcast and breathing heavily into the phone and getting your jellies that way, or engaging in multi-hour-long tantric sex, which is more fulfilling, ultimately.
I never thought of it that way, but you really just convinced me, because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't want a quickie. I never want a quickie. I don't. What is that? I don't want that. I want to have sex for like an hour and a half. Come on, let's be real. I want to, I don't. What is that? I'll spare you the details. But before we get into Sea of Thieves, I did want to.
Before we get into Sea of Thieves,
I'm gonna keep saying that phrase. I wonder how many times I can get away with it. But listen, I did have this in the show notes. You did skip right over it. But that's not my fault. That's not your fault. It is your fault. But I'm gonna say it anyway. Before we get into everything, I do have one little preamble. I wanted to point out last season 12. No, yes, right? Season 12 of the
Season 12 of the Conversation, yeah.
Yes. Last season of this podcast, season 12 of the Conversation, I had a running, I don't want to call it a bit because I take it very seriously, but I had a running duty, a goal where I wanted to establish that the podcast now had a catchphrase or a slogan or a tagline. That was last year. I'm not going to continue that, Hyle. I know you're shaking in your boots. Don't worry, I won't continue it. But I did want to wrap it up. I wanted to give it a little closure because I pitched a number of them, and we did put out a poll to all 7 billion people on the planet, and we have a winner. We have a winner, and this winner.
Oh, okay.
There was a vote on what will be the catchphrase. By the way, if this is your first episode of the Conversation, I'm sorry, but if you listened last year, this will make sense. We have a winner, the official catchphrase, slogan, and tagline. We did have a vote, so here's the winner. Okay, with 100% of the vote, I'll just say it. Okay, the new catchphrase: DK Vine's The Kongversation. None of the above. So that is the official catchphrase, slogan, tagline for the podcast going forward. I'm letting that bit go. It's not a bit, it's very serious, but it's gone. But I thought, you know what, I have to come up with a new bit for every time I'm on, or else it won't be spicy enough. I want a little barbecue on my rodeo cheeseburger. So I have a new bit for season 13. Which this is the first episode of season 13 because they don't count unless I'm on there. The new and 13. Ooh, 13 is such a scary number, right? So I thought, what if every time I'm on the Conversation, I say something scary? I'll come up with something scary. So I'm going to do research. I'm going to come up with a bunch of scary things to say, and which is very relevant to our audience. They love this. They want this. Okay, so
they like to be spooked.
They want to be spooked out, man. Fucking Halloween all year. Let's do it.
It's gonna be April-ween in a couple weeks.
April-ween. It is. And you say that, I think, kind of as an ironic thing, but I'm very into Walpurgisnacht and May Day, and we're talking about the equinox and when the realm between the living and the dead is weak. It's not just Halloween, baby. It happens twice a year, April and October. Okay. Anyways, so let's say something scary. Let's do it. I have one ready, and then we'll move on. When you and I are ready, we'll talk about Sea of Thieves. But first, we have to get this out of the way. In the 1978 film by John Carpenter, Halloween, the original Halloween movie, the immortal classic, we all love it. I know we all love it. There's the killer, Michael Myers. Did you know, Hyle, that in that movie, he ate a dog?
I do know this, actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I know you know, because I told you on the stream of Thieves. But a lot of people watch that movie. A lot of people watch that movie like every year they watch that movie. And they still miss the detail that he ate a dog. And if you don't believe me, I don't care. Rewatch it. It's true. I don't lie. Watch it. It's true. Okay. So that's my daily scary. You're welcome. And if you want to catch more funny, interesting things that I tell Hyle, watch us on Stream of Thieves. We covered a lot of good stuff this season, Hyle. Season 14 of Sea of Thieves. We pitched the film franchise Beethoven, which I will not explain. But if you want to hear stuff like that, watch the Stream of Thieves every Sunday morning on Twitch. dkvine.com/Twitch.
Yeah, we make mischief. What can I say? Just like Michael Myers made some mischief when he ate that dog, and just like the Burger King made some mischief when he sneaked about people's yards in the 2006 Xbox 360 Classic, Sneak King.
All right, now, and before we get into Sea of Thieves, I did just want to quickly just say, how are you doing, Hyle? I know right. you had a long night because you and your best friend went on that adventure to try and go to White Castle or something.
Yeah, no, my dad had surgery yesterday. He's fine. But I did have to travel 3 hours to get to the hospital he was at, and 3 hours back. And I had to get up at 2:30 in the morning. And so it meant I got about 3 hours of sleep the past 48 hours. I did sleep then, quite a bit when I came home before I got up to do this with you, Jeff. So I'm doing great. I'm feeling top of my game. And my game is Sea of Thieves.
That's true. We will get into that. Don't worry. And then you politely ask me how I am, of course. And I say I'm good. I'm good too. Actually, last night I went and saw the new live action Snow White movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which was interesting. I thought it was weird that they kind of put a twist on this one. Instead of 7 dwarves, there was 17 Mickeys. Moving on.
Jeff, I feel like you don't want to talk about Sea of Thieves. You're avoiding it. And I know this was something of a disjointed, I don't want to say problematic, because that's a weighted term, but it feels like it was a season just strewn with calamities for Rare and their development partners.
Yeah, you know what? This is the 14th time we've done a season recap. And they didn't even introduce seasons until years into Sea of Thieves. So this is probably, I'm going to guess, the 1 millionth episode of Sea of Thieves that you and I have done. And I'm a big fan. I love Sea of Thieves. And you know that. You, I think, also love Sea of Thieves. So at some point, you realize some seasons just aren't super interesting. And that's okay.
Yeah.
All right? And a lot of times, we end up repeating some of ourselves. We repeat that, oh yeah, this one was rocky. This one had technical difficulties. And you'll have that. There was a lot of announced features and promises, and then, whoa, wait a minute. We can't actually release that. So we're going to delay that for a month. And then we're going to delay that for another month. And then this season went pretty long, and then, and that's fine. I don't feel like talking about all that. Yes, there was technical issues, and I don't know if they're going to get better or worse in the future. Season 15 so far, I think, has run all right. We're currently in the middle of playing season 15 of Sea of Thieves. It's not interesting to me to talk about it anymore. You know, I want to talk about the season. I don't want to talk about how the development went and all this stuff. They need to get their stuff together, and maybe they already are on that. I don't know. This season launched in October, Hyle. October. Yeah. You know, we're talking about, this is old business. This is last year's business. This is Mickey 1. We're not talking about Mickey 17. But let's just get right into it. But before we get into no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Sea of Thieves season 14. Making Mischief.
Yeah, so as you said, some seasons aren't going to hit, like other seasons are. 14, now 15 seasons of Sea of Thieves. It's going to be a mixed bag sometimes. And, it also depends upon the player, because some players enjoy Sea of Thieves. And actually, one of the reasons I've heard our Sea of Thieves streams, our DK Vine's Stream of Thieves on Sundays, are getting more popular is, one, less people are streaming Sea of Thieves right now, but two, the variety we bring to Sea of Thieves streams. Our Sea of Thieves streams are so different than other people's Sea of Thieves streams, because what interests us in Sea of Thieves isn't what interests the vast amount of streamers out there. Vast amount of streamers, they're all about PvP, the pew, 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 pew action, and we are a little bit more laid back and a little bit more ambling, a little bit more savoring the game world.
Sort of like our podcast.
Sort of like our podcast.
It's okay to take 45 minutes before we get into the topic, and that's all right. We're just relaxing. You have to kill 8 hours on your shift, buddy. It's all right.
It's the difference between breathing heavily into a phone, which is what most Sea of Thieves streamers do, and long, like, half a day, beautiful lovemaking.
Yeah. It's not all a rodeo cheeseburger. I know that you can only stay on that bowl for about 40 seconds. That's fine. But that's not what we like to do. We like to gently sit on the bowl for hours. Okay, we don't want the bull to buck us off. We're one with the bull, and we're I don't know where this is going, but in Sea of Thieves season 14, I'm just going right into it. The big thing, as Hyle has definitely already alluded to, the big thing was new tools and features centered around being sneaky, doing mischief, making mischief with the door closed. And, well, I don't know. Do you think we should just get right into it? We'll talk about some of these tools. And by the way, this season, I don't think it was a bad season.
No,
by the way, I just think it might not be the most interesting to talk about, but that doesn't mean it's not good for gameplay, good for your enjoyment of the game. And there was technical difficulties. That was difficult. But the features they did introduce, I am a fan of in general.
I think the problem is that, well, there's a lot of people who just view everything through a negative prism. So they're going to be going into something like this, especially when there are technical mishaps and emergency maintenance, downtime, and they're going to view it in the worst possible light, and it's going to feed the narrative that's been building in their head. And I completely get that. And for us, it's not necessarily interesting because a lot of the mechanics that were introduced and were being slowly rolled out throughout the season just aren't that interesting in a what's happening in Sea of Thieves? Oh, for the next several months, it's just going to be all about how you can mess with other players. Well, okay, we don't really do that too often, so there's really not much pull there. I think one thing Rare could do is diversify their seasons and the rollout a little bit, so there's always something for every type of player. It used to be something they were really good at. I feel like they've kind of lost the plot a little bit, as they thought, well, the big time Sea of Thieves streamers, they like to play like this, so we're going to chase that. And they kind of lost sight of how diverse their audience actually is.
Well, I'll put it this way. This season reminds me a lot of season 12 and also season 5, both of which mostly just added tools. They added tools, they didn't give you new things to do. They just gave you new things you can do while you're doing things. And I think that those are important features to have. They enrich the game. And we'll get into all those features when we're ready to get into Sea of Thieves. But, they might, depending on what their focus is, they might not be enriching the experience for every type of player all the time, but it's good to have a season that's just like, okay, here's some more tools and abilities and things you can do. We need that. It's great. For the Kongversation podcast listener, it's not always the most interesting because you guys want to hear us talk about an experience like an event or a story or a challenge or a whatever. And when it's like, oh, we've given you a new tool in your pocket that just enriches your day-to-day experience, that isn't necessarily always the best conversational thing. But we're going to find a way to do it, Hyle, because you know what? We're really good at podcasting.
We are. We're so good at it. The thing about this, though, Jeff, and I was reflecting on this season before we recorded, and despite my reservations, despite the fact that the idea of making mischief and screwing about with other crews didn't have much personal appeal to me. We did have some fun sessions. We did have some fun streams during this season. We did make the most of it, and a lot of that was your own pushing, your own desire to make the most of it and getting the rest of us out of our comfort zone, because you said, I am the sneak king this season. I want to make mischief.
Yeah, once I put on the crown, it really did change me. It changed me, Hyle. I put on the crown.
You should crown yourself, and you know what? I think it brought out the best in all of us, because there was a couple of occasions where we did mess with other crews. In fact, there was even towards the end of the season, I don't even think you were on the stream. We had a stream long, just wild adventure where we were sneaking. We took over the Burning Blade, and then we were using the sneaking abilities on the Burning Blade and the crews that were approaching the Burning Blade. And it was a wild time. It was a wild time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so let's get into what the new abilities and new tools and things that we've been alluding to. What are they? What did they change in season 14? God, it's going to be it's so confusing when I have to keep saying the number of the season now that we're on season 13 of the Kongversation podcast, but we're talking about season 14 of the Sea of Thieves video game, while most recently we've been playing season 15 of the Sea of Thieves video game. Let's talk about it. There were right out the gate 2 new weapons, okay? New weapons. And when I say weapons, I'm talking about the weapons you can have equipped right on your pirate, right when you spawn. You can have 2 at a time. And originally, when the game launched, there were 4. There was the Eye of Reach, the blunderbuss, the flintlock pistol, and the cutlass sword. They've added some more over time, and this season they added 2 more. The grapple gun and the blowpipe. So let's talk about those. Grapple gun. Grapple gun is interesting because it's not really useful for combat. It's not a weapon you use to attack. It's more of a traversal tool. And so it's the first of the weapons that you have equipped that allows you traversal rather than combat usefulness, which means you're sacrificing something in order to gain that traversal. The grapple gun is basically like if you are, for example, a Batman. If you were a Batman, you get to do a grapple gun, and now you, in your head, have a mental image of how this works. There are some restrictions.
Basically like a harpoon, like almost a spear gun that you use. Instead of it being lethal, though, you use it to, as you said, traverse terrain, like reach perhaps another cruise ship and pull yourself on there, or even your own ship if you've been left behind.
Or on an island, or, yeah, right.
Yeah. Or you can also drag another player towards you, a la Scorpion from the Mortal Kombats.
Yes, Mortal Kombat is a game. It's a little before my time. I'm gonna age myself, Hyle. I didn't play Mortal Kombat. I knew about it. I remembered it, but I was like, no, not for me. I was
not exclusive to Burger King, so it's really not that interesting.
No, I only play games that come with a kid's meal. But the grapple gun is exciting in concept. I feel like our general impressions, at least, I don't know about you, but of our crew in general, some of our other friends that we play with, and myself, really limited. And it just, for me, it never works the way you think it should work. It like you try to use it and then it doesn't do what you're trying to do. One of the things is if you're trying to board a ship, that is a pretty obvious use case to try and use it. And obviously that could be really overpowered if you could just quickly board another ship, use a grapple gun. Right now, before the grapple gun, boarding another ship was like a really powerful strategy. Anytime you were battling someone else, if you could get aboard their ship, you could hit their anchor, you could drop their anchor, which really crippled their ability to move. And then you could like mess them up while they're trying to repair, and then that put them on defense. So if you can board another ship, that's a really powerful strategy. But before the grapple gun, it's really hard to board another ship. You have to be really good. You have to like get out ahead of them and grab their ladder as it comes by, and then a lot of the times you're going to miss, or you try to shoot onto their ship, like maybe shoot yourself out of a cannon or jump off your ship, and a lot of times you're going to miss. That is a very common thing that happens in Sea of Thieves. So then they had this grapple gun, and you think, oh, I'll just like grapple to the ship. It's going to be easy. Well, it's not easy.
It's not.
They specifically recognize that could be an overpowered strategy to be able to get on the ship easily, because getting on the ship is already an overpowered strategy. So the fact that it was hard to do that was a good balance. They thought, well, we shouldn't make it easy to do that. So they made it so the grapple gun just doesn't grapple to certain surfaces. You can't grapple to masts on other ships that, are the kind of the easiest thing to hit when you're trying to grapple. And in my opinion, this was not the solution. I don't think this was the way to balance it. I think that it's unintuitive.
It is. Yes.
It's unintuitive, the fact that it works for some surfaces and doesn't work for others, and there's no real rhyme or reason, like, logically. But then, yeah, just in practice, it just doesn't work when you want it to work, and it doesn't do what you want it to do. Early in the season, it had a limited range, and I will admit that later in the season, they did add a longer range to it. Now, I think it works like the harpoons on your ship. Anything you could harpoon from your ship, from that range, the grapple gun has the same range as that, which is good. They did improve that. And then they made it so that the longer range you hit a surface, like the more distance you put between you and the surface you hit, the more momentum you get as you launch to it, which kind of gives you some launch speed. But I don't know. You know what? There's some commendations in the game that are like launch to another ship with the grapple gun and land on their ship or whatever. Go back and forth. And a lot of this season, we tried just to accomplish that task for no reason other than just to knock off the commendation. And It was extremely frustrating because it never really works how you think it should. I've played a lot of games that have a tool like this, and the one in Sea of Thieves just doesn't work the way it feels like it should.
It's frustrating because when they announced this, it was right around the time they did their big rollout for like the year ahead for Sea of Thieves, around the time of the 6th anniversary of Sea of Thieves last year. And, they said season 12, season 13, season 14. This is our roadmap. And season 14, we're going to introduce the grapple gun. And I remember there was some reservations among some people. I remember, I think it might have been Gibbon, or might have been Dre. I forget, but it was basically like, oh, I don't know. That could break the game. I was more optimistic, and I was like, a grapple gun. I love Batmaning. One of the great feelings of those Batman Arkham games is being Batman and having a wiggly little cord that gets you up and about and around, and just that great feeling of freedom, that flow, and I was like, that could be fun in Sea of Thieves. I do worry it could really break a lot of the challenges, a lot of the limitations that are there for a reason. And so they're going to have to strike that right balance. It could be fun, but they're going to have to strike that right balance. And it turns out I feel like they went too far in the other direction where they limited it so much that it's just not fun at all. It's cumbersome and it doesn't make sense some of the time. And for that reason, I hardly ever equip it.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, in my opinion, it should just work intuitively as you want it to, and it should feel good to use. And then, after you've achieved that, if you think that it's too imbalanced to have those abilities, then you need to, like, handicap the player in other ways, but don't handicap the tool to the point where the tool just doesn't feel good to use or doesn't feel useful. Like, if the problem in the meta, I'm gonna say meta. I know that Hyle doesn't like when I say meta. I know he'll listen to him purr like a naughty phone caller. But if boarding another ship is a too powerful strategy, then maybe you need to implement some different changes to other elements of the game that make it so that being aboard another ship isn't so overpowered. Especially, one example is this item, this weapon, the grapple gun. It takes up one of your weapon slots. So if you use it to board another ship, you get aboard really easily, but you only have one weapon. So maybe you need to make it that, like, switching between weapons is really cumbersome when you have the grapple. Like, maybe when you have a grapple gun, you get aboard, but then switching to your other weapon from the grapple gun is, like, really cumbersome. Or, one change they did make was that once you're aboard another ship, you can't use their armory, which is the weapon equipment box. Once you get aboard another ship, you can't use the enemy's armory to swap your weapons, which means that you're stuck with your grapple gun, which I think is a good change.
I do like that change. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think Cameron it's irritated Cameron a bit, but I think that, like, personally speaking, I like it just from a logic standpoint. Not to get all, like, Mr. Spock on you, but it never made any sense to me that you could board another player's ship, use their armory, and somehow have access to your complete inventory of weapons. That didn't make any sense to me. I was like, well, why? Why would your weapons be available through their armory? Like, this is some sort of magic box then. This is some sort of portal to your own personal stash of weapons. So I do like that change just from a purely, that doesn't make any sense, Sea of Thieves viewpoint, but it does limit your strategy then when you get on board another player's ship. Because, yeah, if you get aboard with the grapple gun, well, congratulations, but you only have one weapon now to defend yourself.
But that's why I think that's a good balance.
Yeah, a lot of boarders, too, would always like to double gun. They would always like to quickly swap between guns, and they can't do that anymore. And I welcome that change because there's nothing more irritating than a bunny hopping double gunner.
Yeah, I think, really the flaw in Sea of Thieves combat, we've probably talked about it a handful of times, is that the excitement of ship-to-ship naval combat gets really diminished if a crew thinks, my entire goal is to avoid the naval combat and then get my crewmates on board your ship so that we can stop you in your tracks and just kill you in hand-to-hand combat. And, like, obviously a pirate game should have naval combat. It should also have hand-to-hand combat, but the hand-to-hand combat doesn't feel satisfying in Sea of Thieves, and it never has. It feels like a really satisfying back-and-forth sword fight should be the goal of a game about piracy. But it never ends up being the case. If someone is good at PvP, then they are bunny hopping, they're double gunning, they kill you very quickly. Like, the time to kill is too fast, and they can just quickly, like, incapacitate your crew. It doesn't feel good, and it doesn't feel like a pirate adventure. It doesn't feel like a pirate, thing. And so I think it's cool to have a grapple gun as a tool. I think it sucks when someone gets on board your ship, and I think it sucks when someone's entire goal is, I'm going to avoid a cool naval battle by just trying to get aboard you and have a hand-to-hand battle. And then I think those two things are incongruous. Like they're not compatible. Having a cool grapple gun is cool, but if having that means that you're going to throw off the balance of the game because the boarding meta is too overpowered, then you need to address hand-to-hand combat. You need to address how overpowered boarding is. And they haven't. They did in the way that you can't switch a weapon once you get aboard, but that's the only thing they did. They haven't made it so that when someone gets aboard your ship, they can shut you down. They have not stopped that from being the most successful strategy. And even we do it. Like, we do it too. We try to send Cameron to go board someone else to disrupt the other crew's flow and put them on the defensive, because you can't just defeat a crew through straight naval maneuvering and cannon fire. It's just not enough. You need to get aboard them and disrupt their player flow. And I think that's a bad, like, meta for the game. They need to find a way to make it more balanced and make it so that the only meta isn't just boarding the other ship.
And when they do board, it would be great to have an old-fashioned sword fight, because I do think
that lasts more than 1 second.
Yeah, like the 1 or 2 times in my entire almost decade of playing Sea of Thieves, I've maybe had a sword fight. Like, just it's happened only on one hand with the fingers, and it felt satisfying when we actually did it. But I've never gotten to do it because everybody just wants to shoot me.
Yeah, no, in pirate times, in pirate movies, in pirate adventures, obviously I want to talk about the fantasy of being a pirate more than the reality of being a pirate. But the way it should work is that a firearm should be a slow, cumbersome opening move to a battle. Like, all right, before we get into this sword fight, I'm going to fire my shot. The shot that takes me like 20 minutes to load or whatever, gunpowder. I'm going to fire my shot, and if I hit you, it's going to give me an advantage in the sword fight we're about to have. And then we have a sword fight, and that's what pirates do. Pirates have sword fights. In Sea of Thieves, so many players don't even use the sword because it's advantageous to just hit you with bullets, guns. It doesn't feel right, and it never has felt right exactly, but at times it's felt better or worse. And I think that if the problem with the grapple gun is that getting aboard another ship is too overpowered, then you don't need to nerf the grapple gun. You need to nerf boarding another ship. You need to nerf hand-to-hand combat. Something about it is not right. But other than that, do you like the grapple gun? Final thoughts on the grapple gun.
I haven't warmed up to it, and it's possible I just need more practice. It's possible it's like some of the other new weapons and tools that have been introduced in the past couple of seasons. I just haven't gotten familiar enough where it's just a second nature part of my arsenal and my gameplay style. So I'm still trying to be open-minded about it, but as of right now, I really have no affinity for the grapple gun.
I want to like it because it seems fun, but then you try to use it and it's frustrating because it never does what you want. So
yeah,
I think it stinks. In our live stream chat, by the way, I did want to point out our friend Jem Gibbon is in there. And also, I see the Snake Fighter 64 has joined us live. Thanks for joining us. The other new weapon they added, other than the grapple gun, is the Blowpipe. The Blowpipe, in my opinion, a lot more interesting. Obviously, a grapple gun should be extremely interesting in Sea of Thieves. It should be amazing. Right. But no, it just doesn't work. So let's move on to the Blowpipe. The Blowpipe is a pipe that you can shoot darts out of, and there are at launch, there was 3 types of darts that you could use. There was a poison dart. They call it the poison dart, and when it hits somebody, it's like if they got bit by a snake in Sea of Thieves, or if they got spit by the Kraken ink. It will diminish their health slowly over time. There's also a black powder dart, which is similar to the gunpowder, that will do an area of effect splash damage that will cause knockback. It will knock you back and damage you. Then the third type of dart is the lure dart, which is just sort of a homing beacon that will have an effect on enemy AI, enemy PvE threats like sharks and skeletons and phantoms. It will cause enemies to all converge on a point to attack a target. So if I hit a player with that, all the skeletons will target them. Also, if I hit a skeleton with that, a skeleton captain or anything, then the skeletons will attack their own buddy. They'll take their buddy out, which is fun. Pretty cool.
They're going to have some remorse about that, you think. You know, like after they take out their buddy and the lure wears off, they're going to be like, oh my God, what did I do?
I killed Bob. It's okay because they're already dead. They're a skeleton. It's fine. That being said, the poison dart is not actually poisonous. I want to point this out. The poison dart is not poisonous. It's venomous, right? Am I wrong? The dart, you shoot someone with the dart and it starts to damage them. That's venom. That's not poison. Poison is if you eat it. If I eat a bad mushroom and it kills me, that's poison. But if something bites me, if a snake bites me, that's not poison. That's venom. I'm right. Please back me up.
Well, technically you are right, but at the same time, these are a bunch of uncouth, uneducated pirates. I don't think they're going to really, haggle over the precise vernacular when it comes to what darts are getting shoved in them.
That's fine. All right. You win. I'm mad, though. What do you think about the blowpipe, Hyle? And we'll get into there is another dart that came later in the season. We'll talk about it, but let's talk about just the blowpipe itself.
So the blowpipe, again, I'm not really a fan of it. It really feels like it's there for the commendations more so than actual functionality. And again, it might just be because I've been playing the game in some form or fashion since 2016. I don't really feel myself that warm to new weapons or new styles of play, especially when dealing with the swarms of NPC baddies, the skellies, the ocean crawlers, the phantoms. And I feel like they're there because, as you so eloquently put several Sea of Thieves episodes ago, you want to see number go up, smiley face. You like seeing those commendations tick up, those new commendations in there for the blowpipe. But from a pure gameplay perspective, I'm not warm to it again. Now, I will say the blowpipe does seem more fun and functional in certain situations than the grapple gun has revealed itself to be. But my only other issue with the blowpipe, and maybe this is more with the last dart they added. Maybe I should save this when we discuss the last dart. But I feel like while Sea of Thieves has always delved into the fantastical and the myth and legends and fable of piracy more so than the reality of piracy. And this isn't what Skull and Bones purported itself to be before it launched, where it was going to be like the real grimy version of piracy without the krakens and the monsters. And then they decided, no, wait, that's what will sell this game. We got to have the krakens and the monsters. Sea of Thieves has always embraced the whimsical side of piracy, the romantic side. But at the same time, I feel like something like the fourth dart, which they added later in the season when they finally got it working right, the last dart might just break some fundamental believability of the game. Like, why does every pirate have a dart that can do this? This is wild. Like, maybe this should be a special thing you can find in skeleton camps or something that you can then equip, but it's not something you come equipped with when you wake up in the tavern every morning. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But hey, I'll say this much. I actually really think the blowpipe, you said you just view it as like, okay, it's a tool you use to tick off the commendations, and then once you're done, you're done. I don't agree. I think it's fun to use. I don't know if I want to use it myself after I've gotten, I spent the whole season using it, by the way. This is the thing I do. I did this back in season 12 when they added 2 new weapons. They added the throwing knives and the double barrel flintlock pistol. This season, they added the grapple gun and the blowpipe. For an entire season, all I used was the grapple gun and the blowpipe because they're new, and I thought I'm going to force myself to use them. I don't know if I'm going to go back to the blowpipe very often, but I could see someone choosing to go to the blowpipe and keep it as like their weapon they're going to use every day. I'm not the type of player that's going to switch up what I use. I will find what I'm comfortable with and just stick with that.
Yeah.
And maybe there are players that will switch it up and do different stuff different days. But I can see there being players that switch it up and will use a blowpipe. And I can see there being players that like the blowpipe and just stick with it. Because I think it's useful and I like it. I enjoyed using it. I am still probably going to default back to some more basic weapons, like a cutlass and maybe a flintlock. But I definitely enjoyed it. I think it's cool. I think that being able to throw a dart, like the black powder dart, being able to throw a dart in an area, like, okay, someone's coming up the ladder, I'm just going to throw a black powder dart there, and when they get up, it's going to knock them back. That's useful, and not just useful, but like feels good to use. It's satisfying. It's enjoyable. And then in PvP, in PvE, when you're fighting hordes of skeletons, being able to use a lure dart, like, all right, I'm going to hit the captain, lure dart, let his own minions all converge on him, so I get a reprieve where they're not attacking me. That is useful. Not only is it useful in terms of it's damaging the captain, but it's drawing attention away from me so I'm not getting attacked. That's useful.
Yeah.
It feels good. It's satisfying. I like the blow dart. I don't know if I'm going to keep using it. I might try, pull it out once in a while just to have a different session. But it's interesting.
I will say before we move on that one benefit of the blowpipe is that I feel like a lot of players aren't using it. And so when you use it against them, as we just discovered the other week, it kind of freaks them out. They don't know what's happening. And so if you get good with it, if you get comfortable enough with it, that can be a real effective tool in your arsenal to get one up on other players who might be better at the more traditional forms of combat in the game.
Yeah, definitely. They're not expecting it. They're not used to how to deal with it. So if you get good with it, it could be useful. And Hyle, by the way, guess what? I have a surprise.
Oh, I love surprises. Well, no, actually, they make me anxious.
Before we get into Sea of Thieves, I wanted to say, I have a little surprise. Something we're going to do on this episode after we're 1 hour and 1/2 into the episode. I wanted to bring back an old classic. I wanted to reprise a little Kongversation classic game that I like to call Uncle Dad.
I knew it was going to be Uncle Dad. I knew it.
All right. I knew that you knew. So, Uncle Dad, for the audience, viewer, listener, people, Uncle Dad is a game where, and you can play this, it doesn't have to be on a podcast, it doesn't have to be about video games, it doesn't have to be anything. It can be anything you want. But you take any set of 2 things, you have this and you have that, and you take those 2 things and you have to decide which one is the uncle and which one is the dad. Eagle eagle-eared listeners of the Kongversation podcast will remember that we played this game back on our Season 12 episode of Sea of Thieves. Back in Season 12 of the Kongversation. In Season 12 of the Kongversation, we talked about Season 12 of Sea of Thieves, and we played Uncle Dad. So, let's do it. For listeners who maybe have never heard it before, here's what it is. One of the two things in the set of two is your uncle. The other is your dad. I'm trying to think of an example. How do I pitch this? Well, I guess the example I used last time was Bill Pullman is your dad. Bill Paxton is your uncle. Everyone in the audience now gets it. They all get it.
Everybody gets it.
Everybody gets it.
Yeah.
So, Hyle, grapple gun, blowpipe. We have two new weapons. Uncle Dad, hit me.
I would have to say the blowpipe is my dad. The grapple gun is my uncle.
That's interesting. Yeah.
No, because I would say the blowpipe is the more responsible of the two. It's the one that will actually nurture you and your gameplay style. The grapple gun is more of a loose cannon, more of a rebel, more of a drifter. You're not really sure what you're going to get with the grapple gun. It could be fun. It could be exhilarating. But more often than not, it will let you down.
Wow. Yeah. No, I could have easily seen you going the other way in terms of with the grapple gun or with the blowpipe having lure darts. It sort of, there's some more chaos, some more fancy trickery involved in there. And just being like, okay, grapple gun is straightforward. You know what you're going to get. Blowpipe. But you're right. The grapple gun, you think you know what you're going to get. And then it lets you down. Which actually, now that I think about it, reminds me of a dad. But it's fine. We'll move on. Let's move on.
No, I was thinking the grapple gun, it says it's going to take you camping. You're all excited. And then the grapple gun meets a waitress at Denny's the night before and decides to go to Vegas with her.
That does sound uncle-y. When you said that the dad is going to take you camp, when you said the dad makes you a promise and then doesn't fulfill it, I was like, okay, that's a dad. But then you're like, okay, go to Vegas with a lady. I was like, okay, my dad wouldn't do that. My uncle might. So yeah, you've sold me. You've added details that aren't necessary. And in doing so, you've sold me. So let's move on. In Sea of Thieves, the Season 14, Making Mischief, in addition to the new weapons, they've added a few other features, one of which is, for the first time ever, you can crouch. Your pirate You can crouch. Your pirate can bend their knees.
Yeah.
Which puts them at a lower altitude in terms of being, instead of standing upright, they're now crouched. Wow. What a world. You have slowed movement. You move a little slower when you're crouched. Your name tag hides. So people can't see your name tag, which is useful for sneakery, making mischief. And skeletons or other PvE threats, they won't hear you. So if you're not in eye line, if you're not in eyesight, it doesn't draw them to you. And if you're getting hit by, let's say, a cannonball or anything that might knock you, you have reduced knockback while you are crouching. So, Hyle, let's talk about crouching. Crouching is a thing. What do you think?
It's a bit weird it took this long for our pirates to learn how to bend their knees. And I also think that obviously they needed some sort of visual component to communicate to you, the player who is crouching, that you are currently in the crouching position, other than everything being at a lower angle. So they communicate this by having your field of vision go a little dim on the sides. And all I'm thinking is, wow, my pirate really has no leg strength. Like, they skipped leg day because they're starting to black out at this mere, the physical exertion of crab walking is just almost too much for them. Everything's getting dark. They're going to just fall over. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, that's not right. But in terms of, functionality, I'm going to be honest. We're going to talk about a couple more features that they've added that... How do I phrase this? They've added features that you only can access while you are crouched. And to me, again, kind of like the grapple gun with its restrictions, it just doesn't feel intuitive. I think that being able to crouch makes sense. And then the fact that hides your name tag or whatever, it's useful. I like it. Then the things that sort of springboard off of it, like while you're crouched, you can do this. That doesn't make sense to me. These are things that you should be able to do even if you're not crouched. They don't seem like things that should be under the subheading crouched. So, right? Should we just get into those?
Yeah, because I don't think there's only so much we can say about our pirates bending their knees before even I will turn off the podcast.
We haven't even used it much. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
We use it a little. All right. While you're crouched, you can go up to certain surfaces on a ship and hang from a ledge. And while you're crouched, you can go into a disguise. And we'll talk about it later, but while you're crouched, you can set a trap. So those are the things you can do while crouched. Let's dial back. Let's circle back. Disguises.
Yeah.
You can go into a barrel or into a chest. They've already had this as a sort of emote.
Right. There was the barrel hiding emote that they added early on, and it became an essential
Season
component.
2.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's way back. It became an essential component of a lot of players' skill set. I mean, it became like an integral part of the game is being able to hide in this barrel, and you could hide on somebody's ship, and if they're not counting the barrels, they're like, wait, there's not a barrel there. And it's like, gotcha. Or you can hide on a skeleton fort or some
outpost,
outpost, and like wait for somebody as they come with their treasure and then attack them. They don't see it coming. So this is an evolution of that, because the downside to the emote is you couldn't move as the barrel. Once you like jumped out of the emote, the barrel was gone. You revealed yourself. So with the barrel, and there's also a chest disguise as well. And as you continue to go through the commendations, you can then buy different types of barrels or chest disguises, treasure chest, that is. And everybody though has like just the two standard barrel and treasure chest that you can hide in. And you can actually move around like a classic Donkey Kong enemy, Klobber. You can move around like, ooh, I'm a barrel, and your little feetsies come out of the barrel. Get a little toe action for the perverts out there. No judgments. We all like what we like. And yeah, you can walk as a barrel or a chest very slowly, but in a way that is endlessly amusing and delightful for me, a pervert.
I think this is right in line with a classic. It's like, it feels like a classic Sea of Thieves feature that is like, it doesn't necessarily have a function. In theory, you could hide as a treasure chest and trick somebody, and that would be useful. But like, do you need to be like, in order to do that, do you need to be able to walk around as a chest with feet? No, you don't. Like that would not, it would not help you be sneaky to walk around with it as a chest with feet. Because if someone sees a chest with feet, they're going to think, what the hell is that thing? That's a creature. But it's funny. And that's like a classic Sea of Thieves thing is like, okay, do we need it to be the case that when you drink too much grog, you puke? Do we need it to be the case that if you pull out your bucket while puking, you get a bucket full of puke? Do we need it to be the case that when you want to throw the water out of your bucket, but instead of water, it's puke, you can blind somebody? No, we don't need those things. And is it useful? Like, technically, if you really went to like prepare for it, it could be useful to blind somebody, but like, man, what a goofy setup to get to that point. No, it's really there because it's funny and it follows logically. I think this feature is exactly in keeping with that of like, okay, when you are drunk in Sea of Thieves, if you pull out your instrument to play it, you play a drunken rendition of the shanty. That's funny. It doesn't matter. It doesn't like do anything. It doesn't serve a purpose, but it follows logically and it's funny. And I think that's what these disguises kind of are. Like, yeah, hiding in a barrel could be useful for hiding. Walking around as a barrel with legs is not useful. It doesn't serve a purpose, but it's funny. And we like that. We like that.
We do like it. Look, I will say right now that probably out of all of these new features in Season 14 of Sea of Thieves, the ability to walk around as a barrel is my absolute favorite. And it's the one I probably used the most, to the detriment of any progress we could have made during this season, to the detriment of any entertainment I could have provided during our streams. More often than not, I was waddling around as a little barrel person. And one of the most enjoyable bits during our streams this entire season was, I think it was Cameron and maybe Chris. The three of us decided we're going to walk as barrels and we're going to see how long it takes to scale Ancient Spire Outpost and get to the tavern. And so it was like 10 to 20 minutes of just us slowly waddling up Ancient Spire. And it was one of the most amusing things I'd seen in the game in quite some time.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is like a classic great Sea of Thieves feature. There's like, you could envision an edge case where it's useful, but mostly it's there for goofing around. We're just some guys. We're just a bunch of buddies. We're goofing around. And it's funny. That's what makes Sea of Thieves, I think, different than most mainstream, whatever you want to call it, AAA video games, is that it does still, at its core, have a little bit of rare humor and levity and, like, everything I said before, puking and whatever. It's in there. This game is a pirate game, but it's a funny pirate game because of the stuff you can do and hijinks. It's got hijinks.
Hijinks with an X and an S.
Exactly. So the disguises are cool. You can definitely trick someone. One thing, I'm bothered by the fact that you can hide in a treasure chest, but then someone cannot pick you up. Wouldn't it be funny if you hide in a treasure chest and then another crew member, like from an enemy crew, could just like pick you up and walk you to the outpost or whatever? Like,
that would be a lot of fun.
Like, you're just sitting there like, hee, I'm sneaky. I'm a sneak king. I buy rodeo cheeseburgers. And then they just don't realize that you're not treasure. That's funny. You can't do that. I think that you can't be harpooned as a treasure item. Like, if you are hiding as a treasure chest and they harpoon you, I think it brings you back, but it takes you out of the disguise. It's just like, here's a pirate.
You're absolutely right. To me, it kind of diminishes the ability to buy better treasure chest disguises, because one of the things that you could really utilize, disguise yourself as a legend, a chest of legends, or some like incredibly
really
like top tier treasure item, and then that's how you get aboard another player's ship, is you smuggle yourself in this counterfeit like chest of fortune or something, and then they put you in their treasure pile, and then you go about your dirty deeds.
I think that would be nice if it worked that way. It doesn't quite work that way. But still, funny feature. It brings to mind, okay, so, and Hyle, you don't know anything about what I'm about to talk about, but like, in video game history, there have been some games in the 2000s or the 2010s, they came out with a mode called Prop Hunt. I think it might have started with, I'm not even going to say because someone will correct me, but some of these first-person shooter games, like Call of Duty and stuff, have come out with modes where, wouldn't it be a funny mode if you could just disguise yourself as a prop in the level, like a broom or a crate or whatever, and then mill around. And there's no like in-universe logic to how you can be a broom. But in Sea of Thieves, there is the way they've implemented it in Sea of Thieves. There is in-universe logic that you are jumping inside of a barrel or jumping inside of a crate. So that's great. There's no, so far in Sea of Thieves, there is not a mode where you can just become like a golden chalice and then like wobble around. Although who knows, maybe that will happen someday. But it's still, that's a really fun game mode where you're trying to like find the hidden person and someone is sneaking around. If we're talking about making mischief, if we're talking about being a burger king, the king of burgers, if you want to be on the Kongversation podcast, this is it, baby. A captain's chest with little feet. We love that. We love that. All right. So, moving on. The other thing I said you can do when you're crouching, one of the other things I said you can do while crouching is that you can hang from surfaces. You can hang from a ledge. On the side of a ship, on the side of an island, you can just like approach a ledge and then hang. And what that does for you, not only does it just hide you visibly, like people can't see that you're there, but it also hides your gamer tag, it hides your name tag. So that's useful. And you can just kind of coast on the side of a ship. Hyle, have you used this really much at all? Other than trying to get commendations. Obviously, we want to get commendations.
Yeah. So I've tried to use this feature. I've used it a couple times. But for one, it's really hard, especially if you get aboard another player's ship, to then you have to go into crouching mode, which then you move slower. And then you have to find in a precise spot where you're able to then swing around and hang from the other side of the ship, because you can't just do it from any point on the ship. So there's a lot of setup to get there, and chances are you're going to be spotted before you do that. You've got to be an effective sneaker, or the other crew has to be distracted enough that they don't realize you're there. So we haven't really had the opportunity yet, or I haven't had the opportunity yet, to really muck about like this. And then when I have, it's usually been on a skelly ship. An NPC-controlled skeleton ship.
I think it's useful in that context, yeah.
Yeah, then what happens is I end up getting knocked off because a cannonball gets fired at the ship and directly hits me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm curious what is... If I get aboard another ship and my entire goal is just to hide, I'm curious what is the best method. And I haven't yet solved this question. Is the easiest way to hide to hang off the side of the ship? Or is it to disguise yourself as a barrel or a chest? Or is it to just go in a place that's unlikely for other players to go to, like go up in the crow's nest and just lay down?
Yeah.
Do these other features actually work better than things we've already been doing, I guess is the question. I'll just go up in the crow's nest, I'll lay down, no one's going to come up here, it's fine. Or I'll go into some spot in the ship, I'll lay down, whatever. So, it's interesting. I guess my main problem with it is the fact that you have to crouch before you can do it. It's like a weird, again, I think maybe it might be the theme of this season, is that it's unintuitive. You need to crouch in order to access disguises. You need to crouch in order to access hanging off the side of a ship. It feels like something where I should just approach a ledge and be able to crouch. And maybe there's logic in how that can't be that way, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right in gameplay to be like, okay, while I'm in crouched mode, it unlocks a bunch of functionality that wasn't there before that has nothing to do with crouching. All this functionality is not based on crouching. So why do I have to crouch in order to do step 2? It's weird. I don't love it. But I do have an important question, Hyle, which is I think you know.
I
think
know.
you know. I'm going to ask you.
Yeah. All right.
Uncle Dad. All right.
Yeah.
So going
right.
into the disguise feature, and hanging from ledges on the ship. Both of them. Okay, so which one's the uncle? Which one's the dad?
I'm going to go a little bit reverse logic here from my last time around. I'm going to say hanging from ledges is the dad.
Okay.
While disguises, definitely the uncle.
Because the uncle has little feet.
Yeah. You're like, I inherited more from my uncles than my dad genetically, and I've got tiny little baby feet, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that. All right. We like that.
Got stubby little toes.
You got that Kennedy hair and those stubby toes?
Actually, I have long and slender toes, almost chimpanzee-like.
So don't lie to me. Don't tell me lies on this Kongversation podcast. I want to hear the truth about your toes.
I was trying to suss out which is the funniest bit, and I was like, is it funnier if I have very, like, tiny little baby feet, or is it funnier if...
Wouldn't it be funny if you just told me the truth? I'm your friend. God.
No. So I think hanging from ledges, like, from a pure logic standpoint, it seems like it would be more advantageous than hiding as something else or even crouching on a ship where people could easily spot you. But I have such a surprising time being in that barrel disguise that I feel like it's uncle. It's not as reliable per se, but it is definitely a more unique, a surprising, mirthful experience.
Well, I'll let you have it. I'll agree with that. So there you have it, Uncle and Dad. We're moving on to the next thing. And by the way, we mentioned, or at least alluded to, that some of the features of this season kind of rolled out at a uneven pace. There was like promises of this is coming out, and then there was, oh no, we're gonna have emergency maintenance and take some of these features down. And I think that honestly, we're not gonna break down a timeline of this. Like, these are all the features that are now in the game. Some of them were not there at launch, and they came later. And we're just going to talk about our feelings about them, but I don't think we need to break down the process. Because
who cares? Honestly, who cares?
Fuck. Burger King. All right, so the next feature we're going to talk about is they did this came at launch. There was Merfruit. The Merfruit. Merfruit. We said, well, what you want more of? I want a Merfruit. I don't know. It's dumb. But there was Merfruit is sort of a special fruit substance, a little plant thing that is, you can find it in the barrels, and it's a little bit rare, but when you find it, if you cook a Merfruit to perfection, then when you eat it, it will stop the merfolk from visiting you for 2 minutes, or maybe, I don't remember the time, it might be 2 minutes. It is a way to keep yourself stealthy. Let's get out of the game. Like, let's get out of the world logic. Let's just talk game talk. If you want to board another ship, and hide with your little sneak emote, or you're hanging off the ledge, or you're hiding up on the crow's nest, you're going to be visited by a merfolk. And the merfolk is going to be like, hey, you're away from your ship. Do you want to get teleported back to your ship? Are you sure that you're happy here? Do you want to get teleported back to your ship? And that is a way that the game gives away your location. It's important that you have a way to teleport back to your ship, but if you're trying to hide, it gives you away. It's not nice to have a merfolk appearing because it gives you away.
It's nice for the crew that it doesn't know you're there, because then they're tipped off. They're like, wait a second.
They want that.
Why is that mer person hanging out near our ship? Oh no, we have a tucker.
Yes, a tucker as in someone hiding on your ship. Someone tucking away on your ship. Someone who is all tuckered out, like Hyle, after him and his best friend went on an adventure to White Castle. So
again, it's not what happened, but yes, I am tired. And so
tuckered out.
I'm tuckered out, and the mer fruit is a fictitious fruit that only grows in the Sea of Thieves. Apparently, they couldn't think of another fruit that's in real life. Like, they couldn't add a plum. I would love a nice juicy plum right now, Jeff.
To me, it makes sense. It just is a normal fruit that specifically repels merfolk. Like, what
they
if
could be allergic?
In lore, merfolk hate plums. They're allergic to plums.
That's right.
But instead, we have to name it merfruit.
Merfruit. It looks like a squishy conch shell or something. I don't know. And then you can cook it. Now you can just keep it in your fruit inventory and just eat it raw. And it's like a mid-range fruit as far as restoring your health. Like not as good as the pineapple or maybe even the mango, but maybe it's about the level of the pomegranate. I haven't actually compared.
I've never eaten one because every time I have one, I'm like, ooh,
oh,
this is a fancy one. Okay. But, yeah. So if you do cook it up, it will gain an enchanted property. And the game is the one that uses the word enchanted. I would never.
You would never. Don't think so little of Jeff to think he would use the word enchanted completely unprompted.
I don't use that word. But when it's enchanted, it has the property that for a limited time, you can go anywhere in the Sea of Thieves, and the merfolk will not come to save you. They will not come to help you. They will not come to talk to you. They won't do nothing. And that is nice if you're trying to stay secretly hidden. Because in the gameplay of Sea of Thieves, every time you're away from your ship, the merfolk will appear to helpfully provide you the option to return to your ship. But if you're trying to be a secret hidey boy, if you're trying to make mischief with the door closed, then the merfolk popping up is going to give you away. You don't want that. So this is a thing. Hyle, have you ever used a merfruit?
I have probably cooked it twice, and I've eaten it, and I saw the little effect that shows, hey, you are enchanted by this merfruit.
The HUD?
Yeah, there's a little symbol on the HUD, the HUD, and the stank is so overwhelming that no mer person wants anything to do with you. And I have never used it to actually employ stealth with another crew. Because you have to first find a merfruit. You have to then think, okay, I'm going to board this other ship, but let me cook this merfruit to perfection. And by the way, there's a very, very limited window to get it right. You have to stay with the merfruit, and there is like fraction of a couple of seconds where you then have to grab it off the stove. It's just right. You eat it. Then you become really, really stinky to the merfolk, and then you have to get aboard the other ship. So there's so many elements that I've never found the opportunity to use it as intended.
Yeah. As you as a player that doesn't like tuck away on other players' ships very often, or maybe ever, why would you use it? And even myself, who might dabble in sneakery a little more often, I haven't really had a use for it. One thing I'll say that's very interesting is that when you pick up a merfruit, it is in your fruit inventory. It's in your food inventory, which you can hold 5 foods. Your foods include fruits, but also fish or animal meat that you've picked up. And you could accidentally...
snake, chicken,
snake,
rodeo
chicken,
cheeseburgers.
Or fish. And once you pick up a merfruit, it's right in there. You could accidentally eat it. But once you've cooked it to enchantment level, this is interesting, and I didn't quite even realize this until I was preparing the notes for this episode. It goes into a separate inventory once it is enchanted. Did you know this?
I didn't know this.
On your inventory, the inventory has all these symbols, and it has symbols for like food, which is like the chicken/fish symbol. And then it has symbols for wood planks. It has symbols for cannonballs. There's a different symbol for throwables. There is a different symbol for cursed cannonballs, which is its own inventory. And there's all these different symbols for all these different things in the inventory. And once you have cooked a merfruit to enchantment perfection, it goes into its own inventory where when you pull out something to eat, it will not show up. You will not accidentally eat it, because if you look at your inventory, the symbol that it is under is not under chicken/fish, the food symbol. It is under a brand new symbol, which is a picture of a stopwatch/clock. Yes, it's true. I'm telling you. So there is a symbol in the game for a stopwatch/clock. and so far, the only thing in the game that applies under it is if you have enchanted a merfruit. But it does kind of imply that they've set aside this category of items that are like, I guess the stopwatch maybe implies like a time-limited effect. When I eat this thing, it's going to cause an effect that lasts a set of time. That's why the symbol is a stopwatch. Although it's weird because the only thing in that category is just this fruit. This is a fruit I can eat. The category, stopwatch. It's stopwatch category. So weird. I've not really had a use for it yet. I did have one time where I used it and went and boarded a ship, but I wasn't trying to hide. I was aggressive. And so if I'm aggressive, then they're not looking out for my merfolks anyway. So whatever matters, then okay. Merfruit. What's next? Traps. You want to talk about traps?
Yeah, so they added big old bear traps into the game. And these are similar to other like non-inventory weapons, things that you can find in barrels, in outposts, on islands, skeleton forts, I assume phantom sea forts, other areas, but these are throwables. You toss them, and they then sit on the ground, and another player or an NPC or even another crew person on your crew can then stumble into them. Ouch. It's really what the neighborhood watch should use to catch that pervert.
Yeah, why haven't they thought about setting traps? Because I've seen a lot of movies where for example, Home Alone's set traps. Why aren't they employing traps? But the traps in Sea of Thieves, they're interesting. I think the biggest thing that prevents them from being like, the thing that prevents them from entering absolute standard usage, like every single crew uses this all the time. The thing that prevents it from entering that territory is that you as yourself or your crew members can accidentally set them off. And that is, it's interesting, but it definitely is a damper. I think, and I've said on some of our streams, it's like, well, you know what, guys? If we really wanted to guard our ladders with traps, we could do it if we all just like gained the muscle memory to avoid walking in that spot. If we all just practiced and never walked in front of the ladder, we could have traps in front of the ladders all the time. And that might be really useful for us. But so far, we have not committed to like memorize that and avoid that. Because every time our crew tries to employ traps, I do set them off. I do. And other people, but definitely me. I walk where I'm not supposed to. But they're interesting. And here's what's really cool about the trap. So you set this trap. It's like a bear trap. And if someone walks through it, it's going to do them damage. And it's going to make it so that they have limited mobility in the same way if they had experienced fall damage. If you fall and you we call it breaking your legs.
Right.
In Sea of Thieves. If you've got broken legs, you kind of have to like move slowly and you can't jump. When you walk over a bear trap, you get the same experience. You have to move slowly and you can't jump. And that is useful and you're dealt damage. But here's the coolest part, Hyle / the audience. You can arm a trap with an additional item. You can put an item in the trap so that when the trap gets set off, it also deploys an additional item. Here are some examples. A firebomb, a blunderbomb, a cursed cannonball. Any of these things, once you set off the trap, then the normal effect you expect from like getting hit by a firebomb or getting blown by a blunderbuss or getting the status effect that comes with the various curses from a cursed cannonball, that trap will administer the same effect. And you could even like deploy it with like a firework. So if someone sets off that trap, not only do they get the effect of the trap, which is a little bit of damage and then they have broken legs, but also a firework goes off, which is a kind of a way to like set off a signal to yourself. I've set a trap here, a firework goes off if someone steps there. No matter where I am around the area, I'm going to see that firework. It's like a cool signal flare of like, oh, somebody tripped my wire, and I get the heads up. You know, it's like a spy movie, like a Jackie Chan, you know?
My favorite spy, yeah.
Yeah, right? We've all seen spy movies. For example, Jackie Chan. So, Hyle, what do you think of traps?
Again, I haven't used them all that much. They are very versatile, as you've just laid out, and I think they're more versatile than I've given them credit for. Because primarily how I've seen them deployed is you tricking me into stepping into one.
I do that. I do that. Sometimes I will throw a trap right where Hyle is going to step, and then he steps on it, and then he gets trapped. And that, no offense, is funny. But I think that they do have actual application in gameplay against other crews and not just trying to trick your buddies. One of the things you can do with a trap, too, if you're on an island, if you're off of your ship, if you're anywhere on land, you can put down a trap, you can load it with whatever you want to load it with or nothing, and then you can actually use the shovel to bury the trap in the same way that you would bury a treasure item. And all that does for you is that it visually disguises the trap. And so far, I haven't really had a reason to use this, but if you wanted to, you know, set up some traps in some area on an island, you could do that and disguise them. That's pretty cool.
Very versatile, and it's a great medley of possibilities. The problem is I have not had any reason to incorporate them into any of my play sessions. So I feel kind of remote and detached from all of this. But when you lay it out like that, I'm like, that would be really fun to do someday if I have the opportunity.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's nothing in Sea of Thieves where you can really like on an island set a trap. Like, okay, I want to do something that's going to draw players in, but I'm going to booby trap it. In the Sea of Thieves gameplay loop, why would I do that? Or like, what can I do that would do that? There's nothing. In theory, it would be cool. Like, if a crew keeps attacking us on the Fort of the Damned, and we keep having to deal with them, what if I put a trap in a certain spot and bury it? That's cool. So far, we have not had a reason to do that. when you do it on your own ship, again, that's potentially more useful, but you can accidentally set it off. So like I said before, it really boils down to like, if you're going to do it, you need to like establish a spot and then establish muscle memory of like, we never walk in that spot because your whole crew, somebody's going to set it off. I do it all the time. We try to set traps and then I step in them. That's what happens every time I do it. And I, you know what? Maybe it just takes practice and for us to get used to them being part of the ecosystem. But because if you start a Sea of Thieves session, you can run around the outpost and you probably will find a couple of traps or maybe 3 or 4 on an outpost.
Honestly, they're less rare than the bone caller. So it's not like you're going to have to hunt for them for long.
Well, Hyle, I have a question for you because we talked about merfruit, which are fictional fruit that are weird. And we also talked about traps, which are fictional bear traps that are normal. Yeah. Which one of these is your dad? Which one of these is your uncle? What do you think?
All right. I'm going to say traps are my dad.
Okay.
Because they can sometimes shackle you and punish you and teach you a lesson about where you step. But hubris, yeah. But they can also provide you with safety, security, and honestly, you'll look back someday and you'll be thankful for everything they did for you. Merfruit are the uncle. They taste great in small doses, but honestly, if you live that lifestyle, you will repel others and they'll want nothing to do with you.
All right, I love it. You've nailed it. Oh, God, I just opened up a Verner's and it's overflowing. Hold on, I have a suck on it.
Oh, Midwest problems right here.
Jesus, it spilled on my socks.
Oh, no, you got sticky socks now.
Now I got sticky socks. It's on my desk and it's on my socks. God dang it.
Now the ants are going to love you.
The aunts and the uncles and the dads. All right, so we're moving on. We have just, you know what, guys, just bear with us. We're doing it. We're doing Sea of Thieves episode. It's all right. You love us. It's okay. If you love Sea of Thieves, you already are enjoying this. But if you don't, bear with us. We're doing it. Okay.
Bear trap with us. You're stuck.
Bear trap. We're going to do it. You know what? Step on that bear trap. You might just experience a beautiful firework. That's that's shaped like a pig. Or a Athena's fortune.
We all know what that looks like.
Well, yeah, we get it. Okay, so next thing, and this did not come with the launch of the season, but later in the season, there was one, I would call it a pretty substantial update to one of the features of the game, which is called Safer Seas. We talked about this back in season 10 of Sea of Thieves, which was maybe season 11 of the Kongversation. I don't know. I can't predict everything, but I can't remember everything. Season 10 of Sea of Thieves added Safer Seas, which is a mode where you can play Sea of Thieves without experiencing any other online players other than the ones that you want to include in your own crew. And when it launched, it had some restrictions. It was like, okay, yes, you can play Sea of Thieves, but there's certain things you can't experience. You can't experience captaincy. You can't experience the PvP battles, which that follows logically.
That's logic.
You can't get into the Reaper's Bones, because the Reaper's Bones is all about messing with other crews and stealing. So that follows. And everything you do, you're only going to get 30% of the golden reputation that you normally would get. So yes, you are completely lacking in a outside threat of other players. You have a totally safe domain, but you're going to progress at 30% of the pace. And while you're doing that, eventually you're going to hit a max level of 40. In all of the trading companies, you can only hit 40. Because if you want to get to Pirate Legend, if a real Pirate Legend, you have to hit 50 to be a pirate legend, that's going to require you to undertake the risk of the opposite of safer seas, which is called the high seas, which invites possibly PvP and other player interactions. So that's how it launched. In season 14 of Sea of Thieves, they have tweaked that substantially. And now, as it exists today, if you go into Safer Seas, you no longer get 30% of the progression. You actually get 100% of the progression. It's exactly the same progression level that you would get. But you can only max out at level 25 instead of level 40. So you jump in Safer Seas, you want to play the game, you're going to get the same exact progression, but you're going to hit a ceiling faster.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? And I know that your wife actually plays Sea of Thieves in Sea of Thieves sometimes, right? Is that true?
She plays more than I do now, honestly.
Wow.
It's because I play once a week for our Sea of Thieves stream, DK Vine's Stream of Thieves, at twitch.tv/DK Vine. But I don't play in my spare time because I don't have spare time. When I do have spare time, Jeff, the last thing I want to do is soil myself with video games.
You just want to talk to your beautiful wife.
No, I mean, yes, but I also want to engage in literature and art. Maybe go to a museum. Maybe experience nature in its beautiful, giving bosom. And I don't want to sit around and play Sneak King on the Xbox 360. I don't want to do it. So she plays Sea of Thieves more than I do. I'll come down from my little home office, and she'll be on the TV playing Sea of Thieves. She's hooked, and it was Safer Seas that got her into it. She had wanted to get into it, but she never felt like she could get good enough at the game where she felt comfortable playing in a shared server with other players who might have been playing it for a really long time. And we've all seen it. We have all seen the experienced players just picking on the newbies, discouraging them from ever wanting to get in. We discussed this when Safer Seas launched. By the way, Jeff, we discussed season 10 of Sea of Thieves at the beginning of season 12 of the Kongversation.
At the beginning of season 12. So it's not that long ago, people.
Not that long ago.
You could still catch it. It has not yet been erased by the sands of time. Check it out.
Check it out. I was worried when they announced this change to Safer Seas that it would then discourage my wife because she was going to hit her cap very quickly. She was close to it anyway when they made this change.
Oh, close to 25, right.
And I was like, she doesn't like playing with other players. She's going to hit this cap, and it's really going to limit her desire to want to be in there. If the Order of Souls, right? She was going to hit 25 probably within a session or two after they introduced the new 100% yield but limited renown cap from 40 to 25. I thought that's what was going to happen. What turned out was that was the driving force behind making her decide to start playing in high seas. And so far, at first, her friend, she decided she also likes Sea of Thieves. And so they decided they were going to play together on a sloop. So they started playing high seas sessions together every so often, every couple of weeks. And then they did that again just the other week. And my wife bought her first captainship. She was very happy about that. And then she decided, you know what? I'm just going to play by myself and I'm going to jump into high seas. And she's played 3 or 4 times by herself in high seas, which is more than I like to do, if I'm honest. So the intention behind this was to kind of coax the Safer Seas players into high seas when the time came. And just from my own personal stories and observation, it's actually successful. It's actually working as intended.
Yeah, no, I think that's cool. I kind of can see the logic behind it because I think if they're trying to entice people in and saying, look, we get it. You don't want to play with this intimidating online mode, so we'll give you an offline. We'll give you like a private mode. And when they did that, they're like, but you're going to have only 30% progression. Now they're saying, well, maybe you should have 100% progression. I kind of get that because they want you to not feel like the game is a total grind. They don't want you to feel like, oh, I play for 3 hours and I get nothing done because I'm only getting like a third of the yield or whatever. That makes sense to me. And then limiting the level. Like you said, it encourages people to get a taste for the game and then want to move into high seas. My only worry is that like there's bound to be people that are like, I want to keep playing the game forever, but I never want to move into high seas. Those people exist and their experience is valid and fine. And for them to be like, well, I'm completely limited. Like, it's a little disappointing maybe if they're like, I'm gonna play Sea of Thieves forever, but I'm never gonna go into high seas. And the amount that I'm limited might be too much. I don't know if that's true. It could be. But I think that for the majority of the player base, the only reason to use safer seas, the main usage of safer seas is 1, learning the ropes before you go into the main game. 2, going in to do something that you want to do that you just don't want to be interrupted by somebody else, like a tall tale, or maybe you're a photographer. You just want to like capture screenshots of something specific and you don't want someone else coming along. Those things. It's nice that Safer Seas exists. It's awesome that Safer Seas exists. And this change doesn't affect that. So that's great. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have an opinion on this. I think it's good. It's good that they want people who jump into Safer Seas to feel the full force of progression and not feel like, oh, I'm extremely stunted and I'm getting like a trickle of progression, and that every time I play it feels like an extreme grind. That's good. You don't want it to feel like a grind. So yeah, if it's worked for your wife and it's worked for some people, that's awesome.
Yeah, like I think it could be a case by case basis again, and maybe it'd be nice if something like the Hunter's Call, you could progress fully in Safer Seas or something. Like maybe you couldn't get the Pirate Legend still, but there was something that wasn't so necessary for other players being around that it wouldn't feel like a cheat or anything. Because you're still doing the fishing or whatever. But I do get it. I do understand it. It's nice that the feature is there. I'm really thankful for Safer Seas. Honestly, it's done a lot to get people into the game that would have never picked it up otherwise.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, totally. It's amazing. I'm super glad it's there. And yeah, like if it was there when the game first launched, I probably would have mostly hung out there. Like, Sea of Thieves is often described as like a lot of people's first MMO. It's like baby's first MMO. And for me, that's kind of true. Like for you, that's probably kind of true. And it works. It's like the game is very intuitive. The theme of it is very intuitive to get people into the gameplay, because people logically follow the gameplay loop by understanding the theme of pirates. And I think that all of that works for the game's benefit and it draws people in, and it's amazing. It's like, this is why this is such a accessible and popular game. It brings a lot of people in. Some people are going to be like super diehard, try hard, like million hours, sweaty, PvP
gross.
Masters,
perverts,
gross
perverts in the neighborhood.
They're breathing on the phone, freaking telephone ass mother, and so, some people are gonna, they'll take it their way, but I think that a very large portion of the Sea of Thieves audience are people that will never listen to a podcast about a video game. They're just normal people that love to goof around. And the game invites them. It's an inviting environment for regular people. They understand what it is to be a pirate, to goof around with their friends. It's awesome. I love that so many people can get into this game. And I think that making Safer Seas more inviting definitely helps that. Maxing out the level, it's everything is give and take. You have to balance. But I think they've done a good job.
Yeah.
Let's move on. All right, Hyle, there's another dart because we talked about darts. Do you remember the darts?
It was a while ago. I remember
Back
the
in the
darts
day.
coming up briefly.
Let's say if I look at my oh god, it was at least over 1 hour ago. You and I had talked about darts, maybe 3 of them, but there was a fourth. There was a fourth yet to be born, and it did indeed come for the blowpipe. The blowpipe weapon, which had the poison dart, the black powder dart, and the lure dart. Later in the season of season 14 launched in October, and the mimic dart didn't launch until January. Believe it or not. I don't care.
I believe it. I was there.
I don't care. So the mimic dart is the
Yeah.
fourth dart. Tell me, Hyle, what is the mimic dart? What does it do?
Well, the mimic dart allows you to temporarily assume the appearance of either another player and basically take on the visual appearance of their pirate character. You can also use it to mimic certain NPCs, including skeletons, skeleton lords, even some of the big old skeleton lords like the Duchess or the Two-Faced Scoundrel. You can mimic their appearance. You can't mimic everything, unfortunately. You can't mimic, say, a golden chalice and then wiggle around as a golden chalice.
You can't even mimic a chicken, damn it. You can't even mimic a chicken.
You can't run around as a little pig. You can't, I don't believe you can mimic, like, the actual NPC characters. Like, you can't put a dart into Merrick's wife and be like, now I'm you. I'm gonna go have sex with Merrick's ghost.
No, you cannot. You can't mimic NPCs.
Which is good.
You can't,
Which is good, because
good.
that's not consensual.
No, we don't want that. You can't mimic NPCs. You can't mimic, I believe you can't mimic phantoms or sirens or NPCs, or you can mimic skeleton captains, I think, but you cannot mimic skeleton lords or higher, like a skeleton, like an Ashen Lord or anything of that nature. You can't mimic.
But you can mimic the Duchess and the Two-Faced Scoundrel. I've seen it.
Well, those are skeleton lords, not Ashen Lords.
No, but skeleton lords, but not Ashen Lord. Here's the thing about Sea of Thieves.
Yes.
They reuse words too much.
They're confusing us. You can mimic some things, but you can't mimic other things. And if you want to find out what is what, Google it. All right? We're a podcast.
It's not very intuitive. It's like the grapple gun.
We are not a walkthrough. We are a podcast, damn it.
Yeah.
Google it. But, yes, you can mimic some stuff, and it's pretty cute.
It's fun. It is fun. It's especially fun, as you can see from this episode artwork on YouTube and SoundCloud. We all mimicked Jeff as the Burger King Sneak King.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Because sometimes, you know what? A Whopper ain't enough. You want 4 Whoppers.
Yeah.
You want, well, how many, I don't know. I don't eat at Burger King much. Coca-Cola Freezies or an onion ring. You got 4. I don't know. Hyle, please transition me. It's only been 25 years since you've had a Burger King.
24 years this summer. Yeah.
More experienced to speak about Burger King than I am.
No, sometimes though, you go through the Burger King drive-thru, you got 4 mouths to feed and not just 1. And so you have to,
that's it.
You have to get 4 Burger Kings in there stuff those mouths.
Thank you, Hyle. You've nailed it. What were we talking about?
The mimic dart.
The mimic dart. Now, okay. The mimic dart didn't launch until January, even though the whole season started in October. That's cool. We've had a lot of fun with the mimic dart. Even though we're now currently in season 15, we continue to have fun with the mimic dart. And yet, I feel like it might be right in that range, like I said before, of the disguises, where it's like, this is more of a feature that aids in the comedy of the game than like actual in-practice usefulness. Maybe there are players that once in a while will get away with like, I've used the mimic dart and I pulled off something crazy that's useful. But most of the time, I feel like it's just for hijinks. It's just for like you have to go out of your way to be like, this is not the optimal way to play, but I'm pulling off a funny moment.
Yeah, I have gotten tricked by it. Usually just somebody on our crew, usually Chris, assuming somebody else's appearance on our crew.
Yeah, Chris.
And then I'm like, oh, hi, Jeff. And then wait, that's not Jeff. And then it's funny. But I did encounter, I think just last week, it was season 15, but we were using features from season 14. We had a encounter with another crew, and it wasn't entirely antagonistic. Like, I don't think they wanted to fight us, and we weren't going to fight them. We were just going to take advantage of the situation. I hitched a ride on their ship eventually. Jeff, you came along, but you were having internet problems.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. We'll talk about that in the season 15 recap episode.
Yeah, but I remember at one point I mimicked somebody. It might have been the other crew we encountered, but I mimicked them, and they didn't know what was happening, and it scared them. They ran away from me when I took their appearance.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like I said, the majority of the time, I'm not sure if you would actually, like, regularly employ this in gameplay. Like, this is a useful strategy, I'm going to do this is part of what I do in the game. I feel like it's more like a once in a while, or I'm going out of my way to be silly. I'm going to try this off. I'm going to try to pull this off. And if I succeed, it'll be really funny. It might not be the optimal strategy or the like thing to do, but it's just like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? And that's cool. I mean, I'm glad that it exists. You also can mimic like PvE threats. You can mimic a skeleton. And then the other skeletons will not attack you. If they never saw you in the first place, then they will not recognize that you are a threat. So that's cool. Again, it's like, is that the best strategy? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like, if you're going to go fight skeletons, just get in there and do it. Who cares? They're not,
right.
You don't need to hide from skeletons. They're not that hard to deal with. But it's funny, and it's like something you have to kind of go out of your way to be like, I want to be funny, so I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And for that purpose, it works. It's cool. But Hyle, oh wait, no. I was going to say Uncle Dad, but I think that's just one thing.
Yeah. So I will say before we move on, and we don't have a whole lot more to discuss, but I will say that the Mimic Dart, I like it. I really do like it. I think it's one of the features of the season I've used more. That and the wiggling barrel walk, the waddle walk I've used the most. But my only problem with the Mimic Dart, as I alluded to earlier, was I feel like it makes the... And Sea of Thieves is a silly pirate game full of fantasy and merriment, and it's full of funny things. But I do feel like just having the Mimic Dart available from the outset, from when you load into the game, it almost makes the game feel a little bit too elastic and a little bit too silly. And I feel like it should be something a little bit more special. Maybe because it is the fourth dart added.
Like finding a cursed cannonball or something.
Yeah, like it's something that shouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to find in a session, and it's likely you will find it, but I feel like you should have to hunt for it. I feel like just having it in your inventory and being able to take on somebody else's appearance temporarily, it's just like, well, why would you have that? Who's giving our pirates this? Where is this coming from?
I agree with that, especially, and maybe I feel this way because it launched later, and it wasn't originally part of the toolkit of the Blowpipe. Like, the Blowpipe launched, and you had 12 darts, which was across... Was it 12? I don't remember, but it was 3 different types. You had the poison, and the black powder, and the lure dart. So you originally had so many darts, and you had 3 different types. And then later in the season, they're like, oh, by the way, you have 4 more darts, and they do this other thing. Maybe the fact that they didn't launch all together, it just makes me feel like, no, that's it. That's a separate thing. That's something you should find additional. That the original blow dart should just be this, and then that is like an expansion, like a side tool. And I'd be okay with that, honestly, if they had envisioned the blow dart to be that way from the beginning, where like the blow dart itself could have launched as just one type of thing, and then there were other types of darts you could find in barrels. That would be interesting, where like, okay, the blow dart is one type of ammo, it's one type of thing, but you could find poison darts if you look. You could find mimic darts if you look. That makes sense and kind of follows the way they have done things before in Sea of Thieves. I would have been fine with that. At the moment, it is weird to like I said before, I like the blow dart, I like using it, but it is weird that the blow dart is not one thing. The blow dart is 4 things, and you have to like balance using them. And like,
yeah,
if I'm in a combat situation, I'm using one of the types of darts, and then I run out of black powder darts. Suddenly, all I have left is lure darts. They are useless. They're not anything. Like, I don't want them. Like, I have to, that's stupid. So they feel like obscure side types of cannonballs that you pick up in the game. They feel like, oh, I picked up a scatter shot or a cursed barrel ball. You know, they feel like a side thing that I just have in my inventory, and yet it's just part of that weapon. Weird.
It's odd, but I will say, Uncle Dad, it's both. I can't tell which is the real one. They look identical.
The mimic dart, it's both. You know, fair enough. Okay. Well, all right. Hyle, we don't have a whole lot more to talk about. I understand that we are just now getting into Sea of Thieves. But we do have to talk. I think we should talk about, through the season, there were some events. Normally, this is the boring part of the episode, but I actually think that Season 14 had a lot of events, and some of them were interesting. We can skip through some. They're not all interesting.
Sure.
But, you know, and also, I wasn't there for all of them. I did not play Stream of Thieves all the time through Season 14. I was a busy boy. I've been busy, and I continue to be. So let's just we'll run through this. We'll run through some of the events that went throughout the season. Give our audience an idea. One of them, because the season launched in October, one of the events was Ghoul and Glory. Ghoul and Glory. Yeah, you made that noise. Golden Glory is a twist on Golden Glory, which is their usual regular double XP weekends. Golden Glory is what they do every Halloween, but in most of the Halloweens, several of the Halloweens, they have had a full-blown event like the Fate of the Damned, the Fort of the Damned, what was the first one? The
Fort of the Damned was the first one.
No.
No?
The Fort of the Damned was the second one.
Oh.
The first one was purely when you die, you can pick up a different colored lantern. And at that time, it did not go into there was no Fort of the Damned. It was just like when you die, different ways you die, pick up different colored lanterns. That was the first.
Was that just branded as Festival of the Damned? I don't remember.
Festival. That was the first one. It was called the Festival of the Damned. When you died, you pick up different colored lanterns. That was the first event, was the Festival of the Damned. The second year was Fort of the Damned, which was, let's use these different lanterns to power a fort. The third year might have been Fate of the Damned, which was just like a story event that went into the Fort of the Damned. Then at one of the years, they had Return of the Damned, which was the Flameheart event, which was like, you either do these things to support Flameheart or you do these things to support Pendragon, and one of them will win. Either Flameheart will come back or not. And Flameheart came back. Fun. That was cool. But this year, guess what? They didn't do none of that. They just only nothing did none of it. They did a Ghoul and Glory weekend. Yeah.
This has kind of been the story of Sea of Thieves for a while now, and especially in season 14, which coincided with the spooky season and then the festive season, the holiday season. And too often, Sea of Thieves will introduce something that you feel like that's a tradition. That's a new tradition. And they still like pay lip service to it most of the time, where it's like, oh, it's the Festival of the Damned within Sea of Thieves, and we're going to put pumpkins and theremin music in the tavern, the little cobwebs, you know? But it feels so half-hearted, and it used to be a big to-do. And it used to be something to look forward to every year, because Jeff, you and I, we love Halloween. We love different aspects of it, but we love Halloween.
Damn it, we do. We sure do.
Yeah, having the Festival of the Damned in Sea of Thieves and having this event around it always felt like extra special because it would go well into November. So it wouldn't just cut off October 31st and then you're in Christmas mode. No, you would still have a little bit of Halloween in your life thanks to Sea of Thieves through the month into like up until American Thanksgiving even.
Right, and they would do a little Festival of Plenty, just a week-long little thing. And then you get into Christmas with the Festival of Giving, and then that was its own thing. And then you'd have Grogmanay, and then after that you'd have the Lunar Festival for Chinese New Year. Yeah. They are slacking.
They're slacking. I feel like the people, whoever's making these decisions now, feels like people don't care about that. People don't care about that. The truth is, though, we do care, or at least some of us cared. You hooked us. You got us excited. You got us believing. And then you just stopped doing it, and we're disillusioned.
Yeah, it's rough. So they did do a Ghoul and Glory event. Ghoul and Glory, like I said, it's a twist on Gold and Glory. And Hyle, I want to quickly ask you, before we move on, Uncle Dad, Ghoul and Glory. I already know the answer, but what do you think?
I mean, I would feel like Glory would be your dad and Uncle would be the Ghoul.
Right, dads aren't perfect, but that is the trope. Okay, so anyway, moving on. This Ghoul and Glory event, this past season 14 of season 14 of Sea of Thieves, there was a login bonus. You could get a pumpkin painted bucket, which I actually really liked. I really liked the pumpkin bucket they gave. It's pretty simple.
I liked it, but it was weird because that's a McDonald's thing, and this was the Burger King season.
You're right. They're just really dipping it all around. And where's the Wendy's? There's no Blizzard. There's no.
That's the Frosty. Blizzard is Dairy Queen.
I know. God damn it. Colonel Sanders. So they did have a pumpkin bucket login bonus. There was the Halloween cosmetics return. If you went to the tavern, you could see the gourds and the cobwebs and theremin music, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And there was in the Emporium and the Outpost, you could get spooky themed cosmetics, some of which were time limited. Like the skeleton pets are not around all the time. The skeleton pets only show up at Halloween. And the same thing for the new Grim Graveyard pets, which are like, I think, spooky witch themed. There's there was a spooky witch theme to this season. There was a cauldron ship set with spooky witches. It's all there. And then there were like discounts in the Emporium for like various Halloween cosmetics. All of that was there. And if you logged in during the event, you could get a couple of voyages. There were voyages only for the event. But you know what, Hyle? They were not, I don't think that they were brand new voyages. I think that, if I remember correctly, there's a pirate legend voyage for the Skull of Destiny, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a pirate legend, you can get a Skull of Destiny, which makes it easy to immediately start the Fort of the Damned. But I think that during this event, all players could get that voyage, even if they were not pirate legend.
Sure.
Which means that's cool, but that's not a new voyage. That's nothing new to do. That's just making something that's already available, like, more available.
It does give us an excuse to do the Fort of the Damned, which we don't do often, and it usually leads to a good time. So I'm always appreciative of when we have that little push to do the Fort of the Damned, which is a favorite Halloween tradition at this point.
And that said, I will also point out that every season they take the what do you call it? It's like what's it called? It's the Chest of Fortune, I think.
Fort of Fortune. The Chest of Fortune that was found in the Fort of Fortune.
No.
Initially.
Yeah. That chest will rotate among different events every season.
Yeah.
It was originally in the Fort of Fortune, and then it has moved every season. It moves to a different event where if you want to get a Chest of Fortune, you have to do something different every season. And this season 14 of Sea of Thieves, it was in the Fort of the Damned. So, in addition to this coinciding through the Halloween season, through the Festival of the Damned, if you wanted to get a Chest of Fortune, you had to do a Fort of the Damned. So that was a nice bonus to kind of coincide that, tie that together. What else? I mean, did we have any good times with the Ghoul and Glory? I don't even remember. Was it fun?
I know we had good times with the Fort of the Damned, but I can't remember if it actually coincided with this or if it came later.
No, there's another one that comes later. So let's just blow through some of these other events. They did add a new thing this season, new bonuses that are just a regular part of the game now, one of which is that every update, they update the game once a month. Every update, if you log into the game in the first week of an update, if you log in that first week, every month, you get a bonus. Just a login bonus of some gold and it might be reputation, I don't remember. You just get some stuff. That just happens. Plus, they added that once a month, you can, from your map table, you can launch a Voyage of Luck, which is sort of this, it's like you start a voyage and you can go get some treasure, but you sort of spin the wheel on the luck roulette and maybe you could get a super lucky legendary version of it, which is not virgin.
No.
No. We're not on the Burger King hotline. But yeah, Hyle, you've probably done this more than I have because I didn't play every week. But have you ever gotten the super lucky legendary luck voyage of luck? Yeah,
maybe once. I honestly can't remember. We've gotten some good stuff out of them, but if it's happened, it's only happened once. I will say these Voyage of Lux or whatever, it's a nice way to kind of like get you off the outpost, because a lot of times it's like, well, what are we doing today? I don't know. So it's been nice to have the Voyage of Lux. We also we'll usually dive and do a raid on a skeleton fort for a trading company, and it will just usually be a way to kind of break that ice a little bit quicker. Leaving the outpost, and then you get out on the seas, and then by then the spirit of the adventure takes you. It's not hard to find something to do in Sea of Thieves, but oftentimes the indecision keeps you just stationary for way too long.
When you jump in from the get-go and you so far have no direction but like a million things to do. Like Sea of Thieves has so many things you could do. I agree. And I also think that maybe that Voyage of Luck will encourage people to log in more often than they maybe otherwise would. They're like, I usually play roughly once a month, but maybe not every month. But maybe they will see that and say, well, I gotta get in once a month because I want to see if my Voyage of Luck is gonna pay off. That
people love gambling.
A nice thing. They sure do. We talked about it on the Mario Kart Tour episode. You and I, about what, 2 or 3 years ago? I remember things. So we're moving on. There was a community weekend. I wasn't there. There was pop-up plunder. I don't know if you had an experience you want to talk about or if you just want to move on. I don't remember.
I have to be honest, even though we play every community weekend, I have just completely checked out a community weekend. It's just like, yeah, it's community weekend. We're streaming.
The pop-up plunder thing is a thing where they will post stuff on social media that if you follow it and you can figure out what they're posting, you can find treasure in the game. I have not been participating, so yeah, we'll move on. They did do a Pirate Legends week in December. I don't remember if I played this with you or not. But basically, Hyle, like I said, this fucking season launched 5 months ago. There was a Pirate Legends week where special messages in a bottle would wash up on shores. The legendary messages in a bottle. This is the second time they've done this. And we really, I think, personally, I really enjoy these messages in a bottle.
Oh, same. It's fun because you have to be on the hunt for this special glinting glow on beaches. And then you find one, you're like, aha, I got it. And you go do it. It's a different way. I mean, effectively, you're just hunting for messages in bottles. But rather than just finding them in your, ambient gameplay, you are actually looking for them. And it's just a slight variation on the formula, but it's usually a lot of fun whenever we do play like this.
Well, not only that, but it's like it adds. So you're looking for them. That's a fun aspect of it, but you're collecting Pirate Legend treasure, which puts you maybe a little more on edge because you are probably an emissary for Pirate Legends and for Athena's Fortune, and then you're collecting rare Pirate Legend treasure that you might normally not see that much. And so you're collecting all this, and it puts you particularly on edge more than a normal session. So then you're more aware of other crews that might be dangerous to you, and you're maybe, all that stuff. It's fun. It increases the stakes. It was a good time. But it also added double reputation to the Athena's Fortune. Anything you added in to George, the mysterious stranger, or to the sovereigns that accepted treasure on behalf of George, anything you got was double rep. And if you did 3 different message in a bottle legend voyages, you also unlocked a special exclusive cosmetic. So you had that going on. That was fun. I think that was great. That that little thing once in a while, that's what the game should be doing. Like every few months, throw us something like that. That's awesome. We want that.
It's Legends Week. It's like ladies' night. You feel seen. You feel validated whenever it's something celebrating you, assuming you are a Pirate Legends or at the bar a lady.
Exactly. So there also was a Festival of Giving, which is the holiday season themed event, the Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa season of holidays. In Sea of Thieves, that season is called the Festival of Giving. And this year they did like over 12 days. Every day they had a boost for a different trading company. They did the 4 trading companies that they count are the Gold Hoarders, the Order of Souls, the Merchant Alliance, and then the Athena's Fortune. Those are the 4 main things they count. And over 12 days, there were boosts for each of those companies where you each day could get a gilded voyage for that company and also a voyage of luck. I also did not participate in this because I was participating in real life holiday season. I was talking to humans. I was busy. I didn't even look at my Xbox that whole month.
I mean, thankfully, this is kind of like you don't really miss out on much except for like the boost, but you don't miss out on anything time limited. Because here's the thing about anything in a video game during that time of year. That is the busiest, most stressful time of the year. And you got enough on your plate. You don't need to worry about your fictional life as a fictional pirate in a fictional universe.
Yeah, it's not a good time to have to be like, you know what? I would love to do all of these things that are happening in the real world, but however, I can't because I have an obligation in a video game. No, I don't want that. Don't do that to me. Do not do that to me. So, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but Hyle,
yeah,
they did not bring back Grogmanet.
That's dumb. That's dumb. That's what I'll say about that, Jeff, because here's what really, grabs my goat.
I want you to rant, but I want to tell the people that in Sea of Thieves for the past, 3 years? 2 years? There was an event. There was an event called Grogmanet, which is based on the real-life holiday event called Hogmanay. And
Scottish New Year.
It's a Scottish thing, and the idea of it was that you do some stuff. But in Sea of Thieves, with Grogmanet, they introduced a special tankard, a grog drinking glass, where every year, if you were in the game, if you were a player, this tankard would get a notch on it, like a tick, a notch, a scratch that said Grogmanet, no, year number 1, year number 2, whatever. And they introduced this. They invented this concept. That was their idea.
Yeah.
They did it for a couple of years. And then this year, they just said, no, we're not going to do that anymore.
We're not going to do that anymore.
Isn't that dumb?
This tradition that we got you excited about, you are players that we want you to invest in us, in our game, and keep coming back like the little lemmings that you are. We want you to play every New Year's to get this little notch, this little slash across this tankard. The fear of missing out. We know, you gullible marks, you're gonna want to come back and lap up our waters. You're dependent upon it now. We've got you. So long as you live, you will be logging in every New Year's. And I believed in it, Jeff. I proudly used that tankard every January. I was like, look, I got a little notch on my tankard. Look how long I've been playing Sea of Thieves. I'm the best. And then they took it from me. They deprived me of that tradition. And now I have this dumb tankard in my chest that has these slashes in it, these scuffs, these marks. It's not even in pristine condition. And I can't even point to that and say, look how great I am. It means nothing now.
It's dumb. It's fucking
Fuck.
stupid. You cannot, in this business, in this style of game, if in this world, you cannot like establish patterns and then just like discard them. You can't do that. You can't be like, okay, every January this is what we do. And not only have you established what you do, but you've attached it to like a thing players hold, like a cosmetic. You can't do that. It's stupid.
Jeff, years ago, I promised that on episode 4 of season 13 of the Conversation, we would be once again discussing merchandise from the Nintendo Power supplies catalog.
Yeah.
And now it's cumbersome. It's a bit troublesome to work that in. But you know what? Because I believe in integrity, I'm doing it.
You're a good man.
Oh, maybe I should be running the events in Sea of Thieves.
Shit. Yeah, so then the next event they did an event later. I guess it was in January. I didn't play in this one. I didn't jump in on the weekly stream of Thieves. It was in January. They did an event called Reaper Gunpowder Runs. Oh wait, no, actually I did play in this one.
You were in this?
Yes, I did. Okay, so Reaper Gunpowder Runs. They did an event where there was a voyage you could start from your voyage table that would take you from skeleton fort to skeleton fort and pick up different, I guess, gunpowders. And during the event, all the gunpowders you collected would raise Reaper emissary grade. So if you wanted to be a Reaper emissary, which we did, we raised our emissary for Reaper, you could collect gunpowders. Any gunpowders would raise it. So this was really, actually, it turned out to be pretty fun.
It was actually a very fun time. Being like coerced into playing as the Reapers isn't necessarily my idea of a good time in Sea of Thieves, but when you're doing it with your friends and you're all in a silly, we'll say mischievous mood, it can actually be a good time.
Yeah, no, it was cool. So the voyage had you go from one fort to the next and pick up different treasures, a lot of the gunpowders and things. And eventually the finale of that voyage would always have you go to the Fort of the Damned. And we ended up in a point where there were other crews around and we were in trouble. We wanted to take all our treasure to the Reaper's hideout because we were Reaper's emissaries.
Yeah.
Obviously, because all of the things we're doing are boosted rep for Reaper's emissaries. So we want to take the treasure to Reaper's emissaries, but there's somebody there. So we ended up burying some of our treasure at the Reaper's hideout. And then we went to, not the Reaper's hideout, I'm sorry, we buried stuff at the Fort of the Damned.
Right.
Then we sailed to the Reaper's hideout to sell some of our stuff. And somebody came in and fought us. We got attacked by, I want to say it was a sloop. Maybe it might have been a brigantine. They did detonate some of our explosives. But we had at that point already sold everything of value. We sold our flag. We sold our big treasures. So somebody blew us up. Do you remember this? Does this ring a bell?
I remember it vaguely. I more remember what happened back at the Fort of the Damned.
Yes.
When
okay.
it became a choke point of players across the server.
Yeah, so we had some treasure that was buried at the Fort of the Damned, and we thought, you know what? If we're going to go back to the Fort of the Damned, let's get a Skull of Destiny voyage. Let's get a Skull of Destiny. Let's activate the Fort of the Damned, and let's just do one, right?
Yeah.
Which is so fun. We don't do that very often. That's like, that's pretty extreme. So we did it. We went back there. We activated the Fort of the Damned. We started doing it. And by the way, we're fighting waves and waves of phantom skeletons, each one needing a different lantern to be activated. That's how the Fort of the Damned works. But every single one of us on our crew was trying to get commendations from the Blowpipe. So we were not at our top game on like combat. We were just like, all right, all of us are using a weapon we're not comfortable with, and we're just trying to kill skeletons the best we can. Which is really funny because we ended up having one of the most intense PvP streams we have had, maybe like ever, like in a long time, for sure.
It was up there, for sure.
Yeah, we're doing a Fort of the Damned. We ended up getting attacked by, I want to say, at least 3 different... I want to say there was a sloop and 3 other larger ships that attacked us.
The sloop that was called Fruitsy or something?
Yeah, yeah, they had a name. You know, sometimes with the captaincy, you can see their name. There was a sloop. They were called Fruitsy. They came back like 3 times. It's like sometimes in this game, you kill somebody and it's fine. Most of the time, you kill somebody and they're going to come back. They're going to just like respawn somewhere. They're going to sail right back. You're going to have to deal with them. If you're doing something like a Fort of the Damned, especially, then they will have an incentive to come back and try and fight you. So that sloop came back multiple times. I want to say 3 times. Each time they came, and here's the tricky part. You think a galleon versus a sloop, of course we're going to win, but we're not just sailing out at sea. We are trying to do a PvE event. We're trying to kill the Fort of the Damned. We're doing our own thing. And so when another crew comes in, that's like a side thing going on, right? Some of us are on the island while some of us are like, oh no, someone's coming in. Let's get on the ship and sail it. So at one point, I remember everyone was on the island. I got on our galleon and I sailed it away by myself. I'm a solo player sailing the galleon, and we were attacked by not just a sloop, but also a brigantine, and the brigantine was off doing, I think they were off doing a skeleton ship battle event, because then, as I saw them sail towards us, a skeleton ship followed them, and so we have a sloop, a brigantine, and a skeleton galleon. All of them came into the surrounding area of the Fort of the Damned. I am by myself sailing our galleon, trying to escape, and I got hit by the Kraken.
Yes. The Kraken, for those who aren't aware, it is like a naturally occurring event in Sea of Thieves. You're sailing, you can get attacked by the Kraken, where the ocean turns inky black, you can't move out of the ink, and then tentacles rise up and start batting at your ship, and you need to shoot at the tentacles in order to get free of the ink, but then the Kraken will, as we say, suck you off, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole involved thing, and it's even harder as a galleon crew than it is if you get krakened as a sloop or a brig. And Jeff was getting krakened, and getting krakened while other crews were trying to sink us. There was a skeleton ship who was trying to sink them and could easily get rerouted towards us, and everybody was trying to deal with PvE phantom skeletons on the Fort of the Damned.
Yeah, and so I think that Cameron, who was on our crew and on the fort, I think Cameron came back to the ship and helped me, and we evaded the Kraken, which, if you keep sailing, you will eventually escape from the black ink. The Kraken casts a black ink that it slows your ship down, but it doesn't completely trap you. You can escape from the black ink. And once you've escaped, all of the tentacles are still there, the black ink is still there, and other ships can sail into the black ink. And I think that after we escaped, both the sloop and the brigantine got stuck in our black ink.
Yeah.
And while Cameron and I escaped, I think that Chris and Hyle, both of you guys, who were on the island fighting Grey Marrow and doing the Fort of the Damned, both of you grabbed mega kegs, is what we call them, mega kegs, or stronghold gunpowder barrels. I think both of you grabbed super gunpowder kegs and went off and blew up the other two ships and just sunk them. It was awesome.
We did. Yeah, we did. We were victorious.
Yeah, so that was great. And that was a time when all of us were like, well, you know what? A sloop is going to attack us 3 times each, and a brigantine is going to attack us, and this is all fine. Because we're all going to spend the whole session practicing how to use blow darts. We're just going to... we're going to use a weapon we're not familiar with at all.
Yeah.
And deal with all this. It was awesome. Honestly, we had a great time. And the fact that I say we had a great time honestly does depend on the fact that we came out victorious. I get that.
Sure. But the other great time we had this season that I remember is where you were actually deploying your sneak king abilities. You hid yourself. We were doing, was it a Skull of... What is it? The Briggsy quest.
Skull of Siren Song.
Skull of Siren Song. And that's basically your... If you do it, you have to hunt for this chest on an island, and then you have to hunt for the key, and then you get the chest on your ship. Your ship is then cursed and can only move very, very slowly while you are marked on the map from other players who are doing this voyage. So they will attack you to get the chest or get the key, and then you unlock the chest to get the Skull of Siren Song, and then you have to deliver it to Captain Briggsy on an island. We were doing this, and what Jeff decided was Jeff was going to hide. Was it in a barrel or in a chest?
Well, I hid in a barrel. So someone else had already found the skull, which means that they had combined they had found the chest, they had found the key, they combined the two to open it up and get the skull, and they had to take the skull to the final location where Briggsy was. And all of this is broadcast to everyone on a server. Like, you can see where Briggsy's at, you can go there. That is intentional to drive players to fight over this. It's a PvP intentioned event. And so, we start seeing that this is going on, and I said, all right, well, this is sneak season. This is mischief mode. This is mischief month. Let's sneak it up. So I thought, we know where they have to go, and I think we could beat them to it. But they had to go to Crook's Hollow. Crook's Hollow is one of the islands. They had to get there, and I think we could beat them to it. So I was like, all right, well, let's get there and let's just wait for them. Let's not even try to normally with anything in the game, we're like, all right, well, let's go for that crew. This time we're like, no. Let's not go for that crew. Let's just go to the island and wait for them, which is such a fun twist. So yeah, we'll just we'll get there and we'll wait for them. And so we went and we found Briggsy before they got there. Briggsy is gonna appear in some place. She is a ghost skeleton. In case this is your first time ever listening to a Sea of Thieves podcast,
well,
Briggsy
Jeff,
is in this case.
I had to correct you, but this Briggsy is a ghost made real of human Briggsy before she became a skeleton.
Is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sea of Thieves is dumb now, actually.
Once in a while, I am an idiot. So we'll accept that. And then we got there before they did. So we're like, okay, look around the island, find where Briggsy's hiding. And once we find her, we know where they have to get to. So they're gonna come here. They're gonna take a skull. They're gonna try to find Briggsy and deliver it to her. So we've cut them off. So me and Cameron got on the island, and we told the other two of you, which was Chris and Hyle, sail away. We don't want them to see our ship. Just get out of here. So they got out of here. And we set traps all around Briggsy, and then we disguised as barrels. And we just hid. We're just like, okay, these guys have to get here. And guess what? It worked. It was awesome.
Yeah.
They got there. They obviously, like, this makes sense, but like, you run across a whole island and you get to the last stretch. You're not like expecting to like, disbelieve a barrel. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you run, you get there, and you expect it to be a thing. And we blew the guy up, and we stole the skull. We sold it. And you know what? A little bit I feel bad. No, Hyle, a little bit I feel bad. But a little bit I do feel bad, actually. I do. But some features in Sea of Thieves, specifically that one and numerous others, they are designed around drawing players together in PvP conflict, and that is one of them. If you're going to engage in a feature that puts you on the map for everyone else, where they all see where you're going, then that means that that is a voyage that is built around PvP. You have to expect to be surprised. I'm sorry. I hid. I was a sneaky barrel boy, and I hid, and I did get you.
And you know what? That crew will never trust another barrel in the game ever again. It was an important lesson.
They are gonna stay back. They're gonna send someone in first who doesn't have the skull. All right. They're gonna be like, all right, hey, Francesco, you go in first and find out if it's safe, and then Tilly will go in. I don't know why I picked these names. That's the names they got, but they'll check it out. They'll find out if they're safe before they go in, and then it will be safe. We taught them a lesson. It was cool though. It was really exciting and thrilling, and also like terrifying, like anxiety inducing to sit there and wait and be like, okay, they're coming. What do we do? We have those experiences in Sea of Thieves so seldomly. We rarely have them that when they do, they really do pound the heart.
It's as terrifying as hiding in the bushes in the neighborhood, calling your favorite podcast, and breathing heavily into the phone.
Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah, with the what do you call that thing? What's that thing? Oh no, I forgot. Hyle, give me 14. Give me 14 seconds. Trench coat. I got it. All right. We're nailing it. All right. It's like wearing a trench coat. Okay. So there was a Dark Fortress run weekend, which I did not participate in, but you did on the Stream of Thieves. That was the Sea Forts.
Yeah, they did this thing with the Sea Forts where they added like the most basic story to get you to visit the Sea Forts, the Phantom Sea Forts. And I honestly already forgot what it's about. It was something like the Dark Brethren, who were like Duke and Wanda, who we haven't seen in ages. And it was just kind of a way to be like, yeah, we haven't forgotten about the Dark Brethren, but we still don't know what we're doing with the Dark Brethren. So here's a reminder about the Dark Brethren. They're doing something with the Sea Forts this week.
Yeah, no, they didn't do a good job. No, I mean, it's fine.
I appreciate the minimal effort, but it really did feel like minimal effort. I don't know.
I'm right there with you. I didn't jump in, and then we did later in the season see some teases that were sort of pointing us towards what was going to come in season 15.
Yeah,
which we are now playing. We saw some stuff with the ghost of Merrick appearing in various places and talking to us. And you know what? I liked that. I wanted to tell you that Merrick appearing and talking to us and telling us stuff, they have experimented throughout the years with a million different methods of like, how do we put in a tease for what's coming next? They've done it a whole bunch of different ways, and in all the ways that they've done it, I will take like Ghost Merrick coming up and talking to us with like unique dialogue. I'll take that 10 times out of 10 versus like some of the stuff they've done that's just like, we put we put some tarot cards in a place. I don't want to hear that. I want to see a character. I want to see some dialogue. This was one of the better ways they have done that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I'll take this over all the stuff that requires like Riddler-like logic where you have to like, oh, there's tarot cards strewn about the Reaper's hideout, and if we cross-reference that with these 32 social media posts and watch the Sea of Thieves Twitch channel between 2:23 in the morning and 4:17 the next day, like I don't have time for that. Shut up. Like, let me experience the thing in the game. Stop being all argy.
Make it a thing that the characters in the game are talking about. Yeah. And you know what? They could go a lot further with it. I would love that, like, every time you go to the outpost, everyone on the outpost is talking about what's coming next. The people on the outpost, that is your avenue to, like, be a lively conversation about the world of Sea of Thieves. So, like, you get on the outpost, you spawn in the tavern, you have Lorena, you've got other people in the outpost. All of them should be buzzing about, like, what is coming, what is going on in the game.
They don't even update Lorena's dialogue all the time now, so...
Right, and they used to.
And I remember, like, Cursed Sails, like, the first year of Sea of Thieves, when the skeletons were building ships for the first time and they were attacking the outpost, and everybody, it felt like this huge event where everything stopped to acknowledge it. And we don't need to go that far with everything, but it would be nice if everybody was gossiping about what was coming.
Yes.
Like,
what?
You know,
yes.
You know what they say about gossip? It's the devil's radio. And if there's one thing Sea of Thieves likes to do is put devil in front of terminology.
That's true. Like, sort of like the rodeo cheeseburger. If it was in Sea of Thieves, they'd call that the devil cheeseburger. But I agree. You know, if the NPCs on the outpost would all of them be just sort of buzzing and talking about things that are going on, that seems like a good thing to do. They should do that. I agree.
They should just listen to us because we got some really good ideas about Sea of Thieves personally.
Why don't they listen to us? This is crazy.
Probably because they don't like listening to a podcast over 3 hours. They don't understand the appeal.
Hold on. This has not been over 3 hours. Let me look. Fair enough. Shit.
So, Jeff!
Hyle.
Final thoughts about Sea of Thieves Season 14. This was a controversial one. A lot of people took issue with the rollouts and then the takebacks and then the reintegration. We're not going to really talk about that. As we already said, we don't really care about the timeline. We just care about where it stands, where the features stand in the game as of today. Do you think it was beneficial? Do you like what it brought to Sea of Thieves?
Do I like it? You know, it's kind of like asking me if I like my uncle. Man, you know, I don't have an answer for that, but all in all, oh man, Uncle, yeah, Sea of Thieves, rodeo cheeseburger. It was, in effect, a lot of the features boosted Sea of Thieves experience overall, even if in the moment, like, specific engagement with them might not have been all the whole thing. Let me think. How am I gonna? You know, Hyle, with Sea of Thieves season 14, it's sort of there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, there's, it's sort of like the rodeo cheeseburger. There's people, oh my god. Yeah, Sea of Thieves season 14, it's a weird mix of features. It feels a little bit like a Burger King rodeo cheeseburger, It's got all this stuff, and to be honest with you, it makes me want to call into the conversation and jerk off. Okay, no, let me do it again. That was bad. No, I can do better. I'm sorry. All right, hey everyone, listen, you guys, this is so rare for us to take this many takes. I promise you, this never happens. All right. Hi. I can do this. Okay. All right. This sucks.
This has been a File 2 production.
Qué rico.